uncertainty this morning over the future of the National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola. He's appeared in court over allegations linked to the controversial 364 million rand Medicare 24 health tender. Masemola will now be back in court on the 13th of May. That's where he will join Vusimusi, Cathy Mohlahlana and 12 other police officers in the dock. The case comes amid ongoing concerns about governance and accountability within law enforcement agencies, also at a time when public confidence in policing is at an all-time low. The question is, what must happen now with the National Police Commissioner? What must happen now with the National Police Commissioner? Coming up in this hour, the Justice Minister Mamoloko Kubai acknowledging that many in the legal profession have long argued that black practitioners continue to be sidelined, shut out of meaningful state work and locked out of opportunity. She'll tell us what she's doing about it. Is transformation still a promise on paper, or is the system simply reproducing itself? We'll speak to her later on in the hour. And then coming up on the briefing debate, we look at the basic income grant. Does South Africa need it? We'll bring you all sides of that particular debate within the final hour of the show. And as always, would love to hear from you. The number to get in touch with us on our studio line, 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. That's where you can send your WhatsApp voice notes and text messages, 0614 104 107. Looking forward to being in your company as you get ready to kickstart your day.
At Fly SAfmRadio, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger and do what they love. Visit flysafmradio.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school and you could be a winner. Fly SAfmRadio, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now, paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold, just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
Top Billing is back with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. Get ready to experience the world of luxury travel, design and inspiring stories with new dynamic presenters, including Zosbini Tunzi, Brayoni Govender, amongst others. They bring their unique style, energy and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3 Thursday, the 30th of April at 7 p.m. Repeats Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. on SABC 1. Top Billing is back. You don't want to miss it.
The National Briefing on SAFM weekday mornings from 6 to 9.
It's 13 after 6 o'clock. Let's look at the stories that are making headlines or that have made the front pages, particularly of the national publications. On the front page of the Sowetan this morning, Masemola failed in his duties to stop Matlala tender. That forms part of the argument made by the state, saying that the police commissioner has a case to answer. And a legal expert says mere negligence suffices for a conviction. And the argument made by the state is that the National Police Commissioner had an obligation as a manager to check that his staff did their job properly in awarding a 360 million rand tender to Vusimusi Cat Matlala's company. And so that's just the case then that Masemola will be joining. Later on in May, he'll be joining Matlala and others in the dock. Can you imagine that? Can you think about that picture? Also on the front page of the Sowetan this morning, pure greed, it says. Businessman Nkosi allegedly defrauded Eskom to the tune of 76 million rand. Charging 50,000 rand for a relay costing 450 rand. The SIU freezes assets which include, listen to it, 17 houses and 7 luxury cars. So the businessman in question is Siyabonga Nkosi, and the story is about how he basically defrauded Eskom over a number of years. That's the allegation now that he has to answer to. And the Sowetan has pictures of some of his 17 cars and pictures of the luxurious properties amongst the 17 of which have now been seized and are frozen by the SIU. The front page of the Citizen then this morning, minister's wife targets me. That's the suspended acting chief blaming her predecessor for the headquarter lease debacle and says that the suspension is irrational and is pleading for reinstatement. And that's basically then coming from the Sector Education and Training Authority claims in the Labour Court that Nombulelo, the wife of the former Labour Minister Thulas Nxesi, is to blame. And that's just the story running on the front page of the Citizen. Also on the front page of the Citizen then is a picture of the country's top cop in court yesterday, Fani Masemola, as he, of course, appeared at the Pretoria Magistrates Court and was confronted with the state's case against him in relation to that controversial SAPS tender. The front page of the Business Day this morning, court blocks longer trading hours for liquor. The judge in the Northern Cape has ruled that government has failed to conduct proper public consultation, and that means that the court has now upended the provincial government's plans to extend liquor trading hours, upholding a challenge brought by the non-profit company DJ Murray Trust. The trust is campaigning against moves by provinces and municipalities to extend the hours during which alcohol can be sold, arguing that increasing the availability of liquor only worsens the high rates of South Africa's binge drinking and associated violence. So that's what's on the front pages of some of the country's publications. The front page of The Star this morning also staying with the court appearance of Fani Masemola before a court yesterday. So I think that's just an overview of what you can expect from the national publications.
At At Fly SAfmRadio, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages, and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger, and do what they love. Visit flysafmradio.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school, and you could be a winner. Fly SAfmRadio for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
SABC2 is bringing the heat. New shows, new faces, and stories that hit home, like the one I'm in called Pimple. And that's where you can catch me, Michelle Masalakai, every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
You may or may not know the difference between a teaspoon and a caviar spoon, but you do know a great Outsurance deal when you see one. Get a car insurance quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash, SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
The National Briefing on SAFM with Cathy Mohlahlana.
Let's take a look at your weather for this morning. Taking a look at your warnings, we have a yellow level 4 warning, severe thunderstorms leading to strong damaging winds, hail, excessive lightning and possible heavy downpours leading to flooding and damages to susceptible formal, informal settlements and infrastructure that can be expected over the eastern and central parts of Limpopo, as well as the extreme northeastern parts of Mpumalanga. Yellow level 2 warning, severe thunderstorms leading to localized flooding of susceptible roads, low-lying areas and bridges, as well as localized damage to infrastructure and settlements can be expected over the central and western parts of Limpopo, most parts of Mpumalanga, Gauteng, and eastern parts of the northwest. A yellow level 2 warning, damaging winds and waves leading to disruption of ports, small harbor activities for a short period, and difficulty in navigation at sea can be expected between Alexander Bay and Plettenberg Bay. There are no fire warnings or advisories. In Pretoria, the weather is cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers. Minimum 16, maximum 21. The expected UVB sunburn index is low. In Johannesburg, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers. Minimum 14, maximum 20. Vereeniging, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers. Minimum 15, maximum 21. In Mbombela, cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers. Minimum 17, maximum 19. In Polokwane, fog patches at first, otherwise cloudy with widespread showers and thunder showers, minimum 18, maximum 21. In Mahikeng, cloudy with morning fog patches and scattered afternoon showers and thunder showers, minimum 14, maximum 22. In Vryburg, cloudy at first with morning fog patches, otherwise partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, minimum 9, maximum 23. In Bloemfontein, cloudy at first, otherwise partly cloudy, minimum 6, maximum 20. In Kimberley, partly cloudy at first, otherwise fine, minimum 5, maximum 22. In Uppington, the weather is fine, minimum 8, maximum 24. In Cape Town, partly cloudy, wind light southeasterly, becoming moderate from the afternoon, minimum 13, maximum 19. The expected UVB sunburn index, very high. In George, cloudy with light rain in the morning, wind light to moderate southwesterly in the morning, becoming southeasterly in the afternoon, minimum 11, maximum 16. In Gqeberha, cloudy with isolated showers and rain, wind fresh to strong southwesterly, becoming moderate south in the afternoon, minimum 14, maximum 19. In East London, fine, becoming cloudy with isolated showers and rain, wind fresh to strong southwesterly, minimum 13, maximum 19. In Durban, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, wind moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly, becoming strong at times, minimum 18, maximum 23. The expected UVB sunburn index is low. In Richards Bay, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, Wind moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly, becoming strong at times, minimum 19, maximum 25. And in Pietermaritzburg, cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, minimum 11, maximum 18.
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. The Global Briefing on SAFM.
23 after 6 o'clock, let's get into the global briefing. Pressure is mounting within the European Union, where several member states are calling for a review of the bloc's agreement with Israel over alleged human rights violations in Gaza. Discussions are also underway on whether elements of that agreement could be suspended. In the United Kingdom, questions are also being raised about political influence in diplomatic appointments. It follows reports that Downing Street may have played a role in the selection of a new ambassador to Washington. Joining us for this conversation is Acting Program Head on African Governance and Diplomacy at the South African Institute of International Affairs, Gustavo de Carvalho. Gustavo, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning. First, let's start with the picture that we're seeing coming out of the European Union. Why is this significant?
Good morning, Cathy, and thank you so much for this invitation. So I think when we look into the dynamics within Europe, we certainly see an increasing friction between the 27 members of the European Union. The EU, Israel have had an association agreement for quite some time at this stage. And of course, what we've seen coming from Spain, Ireland, and Slovenia putting pressure that Article 2 of that treaty to be applied that reflects specifically on what are some of the essential elements that should be maintained as a condition for the agreement. And that includes the respect for human rights and democratic principles. That split to a large extent, it is related to, of course, European dynamics and how different countries have presented their perspectives and views around dynamics around Gaza, around the West Bank, and the role of Israel, especially since the approval of death penalty military courts for Palestinians. I think from a broader perspective of what it does tell us, it's really an identity crisis within the European Union in terms of a group that has been largely playing the role of a normative leader internationally. The ideas of double standards in this regard become very visible, not just from the outside, but it's becoming very clear, particularly from the inside dynamics, especially with the three members going against the majority of the European Union in terms of stances on Israel.
How much of this is being triggered or even fueled by the current US-Iran-Israel conflict?
It certainly is. I think it does create a new level of visibility to the issue. While the war in Iran and the conflict in Gaza have different dynamics altogether, they're part of the same ecosystem, and certainly it plays a role, especially when you look into roles of countries like Spain that over the last couple of weeks have really been vocal, not only in terms of its views and positions around the situation in Israel, the situation in Gaza, but particularly the situation in Iran, that really created a stronger rift, but also for some within Europe, a sense of urgency that the predictability of the European Union positions and views in terms of its own norms and regulations that are very constantly presented to what many in Africa often raise concerns around the conditionality clauses that exists in many European Union agreements. But at this stage, it's interesting to see how the European Union ability or inability, and in this case, what should be highlighted is its own inability to really enforce Article 2 of the very agreements that the European Union has signed with Israel when it comes to trade. That would have, if it were to be approved, it would have certainly quite a direct impact on the economic sector in Israel.
And just finally then, on the Peter Mandelson affair, Britain's top civil service testified under oath that Downing Street applied pressure to override security vetting for the diplomatic post. Talking about double standards?
Absolutely. And I think the UK situation perhaps shows even more issues around where is the United Kingdom at this stage in terms of its relationship with the United States. I think what many countries have been doing over the past year is really to adjust and adapt to a new style of developing diplomatic channels with the United States. And certainly we see the United Kingdom's choice lacking at the moment. What it does, I think it certainly confirms a strong indication of increasing dependency of the United Kingdom by the United States, and to a large degree how domestic processes and concerns, and particularly concerns that had been presented not only about Mandelson's connection to the Epstein Files case, but particularly for his own connections with the intelligence sector in China, and a lot of questions that exist at the moment within the UK around its own bandwidth and ability of navigating their own relations with the US. But I think particularly the impact that it brings to the broader UK branding to other countries, including countries within Africa and in the global South, that is certainly something that we will continue to see, and certainly another step within a much broader decline of influence and capacity of pursuing autonomy positions by the United Kingdom itself.
Gustavo de Carvalho is the acting program head on African governance and diplomacy at SAIA.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
This is Cathy, and I'll say FM listeners a very good morning. We should be really careful, to celebrate the arrest of police boss Fanima Simula, and this should give us an understanding, that these people are so, these cartels are so smart that they can actually take down whoever is trying to take them down. The story that I could refer is the story of General Khumalo, who was actually plotted against. And this could be the same story. This is Andile from Stexford in the Eastern Cape, near to Borders.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the Madlanga Commission has confirmed the inquiry has received correspondence from lawyers representing the family of the late Hilary Gardie. Commission spokesperson Jeremy Michael says the matter will be assessed to determine whether it falls within the Commission's terms of reference, adding that it's too early to make a determination. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has told Parliament he is applying his mind on the issue of the fuel levy. This after government reduced the levy temporarily by R3 per litre from the 1st of this month. And the company behind ChatGPT has denied playing a role in a deadly shooting at Florida State University last year after prosecutors in Florida began a criminal investigation into the firm. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Some heavy traffic on Joburg's N3 this morning, all jammed up already on that run through the delineator section at Heldenace interchange. Big delays off the N12 and from Alberton N3, from sort of Rand Airport territory up through Heldenace and into Van Buren Road territory. The M2 coming out of Joburg, just queuing at Heldenace to get into that N3 North as well. The Crown's pretty heavy. Mike 1 from Ormonde through to Parktown. M2 from Joe Slovo into the Mike 1, already slow going as well. And Pretoria roadworks still there. The M1 south at Storenville. It was an easier start this morning. Thought the roadworks might have been lifted, but there are some delays as you line up from Montana down towards that Storenville Road exit. A couple of big truck crashes around KZN1 blocking the R61 and probably will block this road for some time. A truck right across the carriageway there between Port Edward and Munster. And if you're driving from Howick on your way down to Durban, that big truck crash just by Maryvale. It's just before you get to the Maryvale off-ramp. Let's just zoom in on there. Yeah, traffic all the way back through to Midmar and a bit beyond. So if you're coming from Moy River, might want to off-ramp at Tweedy, go around Howick, come on at Midmar. That'll probably work quite nicely. Cape Town, a breakdown on Baden-Powell Drive this morning at Coastal Park. So coming through from Strandfontein, some additional delays. And if you're leaving the Veltvreden side of Mitchell's Plain, Veltvreden Road crash scene at Westport Drive, holding you up towards sort of the M7 connection. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Oh, Zaikan, good morning, good morning. It's time for another. You know, if there's a wonder of the world that needs to be studied, amongst them is the Soweto Derby. Because like magic, every single time, you can expect the same outcome in as far as the way fans are going to respond.
Oh, Cathy, this is not a match. This is a national event. That's how. This is the magnitude of the Soweto Derby. This is when the friendships pause for a full 90 minutes. And families, you can see what goes out the window. And I think, you don't need a ticket, man. You just have to follow the noise when it comes to the Soweto Derby. And we are gearing up for it. It is going to be a blockbuster one. Orlando Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs clashing this Sunday at FNB Stadium. The match already sold out. It marks their 185th meeting and comes at a crucial stage of the season. Pirates go in with momentum, sitting top of the table, while Chiefs are currently third. They'll be looking to restore pride and close the gap with bragging rights and title ambitions on the line. This Freedom Day weekend showdown is going to be another unforgettable chapter. But let's hear now from the Pirates coach, Mandla Mkhizi.
Highly competitive match. We are preparing to win, knowing who we are and knowing the magnitude of the game and the importance of the points that we must get in the match. And we have to be highly clinical in front of goals. That will be important. We know where we have been not doing as well. We're just focusing on that, perfecting it on this match.
Meanwhile, former Bafana goalkeeper Roger De Saa will be on the touchline at the FIFA World Cup, this time as Ghana's assistant coach. The 61-year-old reunites with veteran coach Carlos Queiroz, continuing a long-standing partnership across international football. Ghana will face Mexico and Wales in a warm-up match before opening their World Cup campaign against Croatia, England and Panama. Now, Mexico's government has moved to reassure fans over World Cup security following a deadly shooting near their pyramids. Authorities say enhanced security, including increased patrols as well as cyber monitoring, will be in place ahead of the tournament. Let's go to rugby. The Blitzboks are back today on home soil after ending a 50-year wait for that Hong Kong gold, where they thrashed Argentina 35-7 in a dominant final to claim their first ever title at the iconic tournament. Here's their coach, Philip Snyman.
Obviously, there was always hopes and dreams and belief, but there was this calm feeling inside the team. And after that last warm-up, and to be honest, it's difficult to believe that one can win the tournament after day one. But the way the guys came back and the stuff that we've learned in day one and how we rectify our mistakes and the way we picked ourselves up and to be clinical, especially in the finals day. So New Zealand and now Argentina, incredibly proud. Massive day for Springbok Sevens.
And finally, cricket. Abhishek Sharma delivered one of the great IPL knocks, smashing an unbeaten 135 as the Sunrisers Hyderabad beat the Delhi Capitals by 47 runs. Sharma struck 10 sixes and 10 fours, as this was the 5th highest score in IPL history. Hyderabad piled on 242 for 2. South Africa's Heinrich Klaasen added 37 of 13 balls, while Delhi fell well short despite a half century from Nitish Rana, closing on 195 for 9. That's your sport. We'll be back swinging it with more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Market Brief with Ndauleng Lechela on SAFM.
Good morning, Ndauleng. This morning we start with oil price movements. Those have been surprisingly muted despite the US President Donald Trump announcing a ceasefire extension. What are we to read into that?
Good morning, Cathy. Now, you'd expect an extended ceasefire from President Trump to push oil prices even lower by reinforcing the peace narrative. But the muted reaction suggests the market isn't convinced. As we speak, Brent is holding slightly above $98 a barrel with only modest easing. And that points to lingering doubts over whether the truce will hold or translate into a lasting agreement. Instead, investors appear to be pricing in a prolonged standoff. While the ceasefire reduces the risk of immediate supply disruptions, ongoing tensions, including the US blockade and stalled negotiations, continue to support prices. In short, the market sees delay, not resolution. Without tangible de-escalation, oil is likely to remain range-bound, driven more by uncertainty than a clear shift toward peace. At the same time, attention is turning to the Fed, where independence is under scrutiny. Appearing before lawmakers yesterday, Fed Chair nominee Kevin Walsh stressed that the central bank would remain free from White House influence despite pressure from President Trump. He called for a reset in how inflation is handled, criticizing the current approach for fueling post-pandemic price pressures and signaling a tougher, more disciplined framework ahead. Walsh also argued for less forward guidance, saying policymakers should avoid over-communicating on future rate moves. His nomination, however, faces resistance in Congress, so it's a wait-and-see game for now. The implications of this move stretch well beyond the US, as the Fed's credibility underpins global borrowing costs, capital flows, and currency stability. Any erosion of that independence risks unsettling markets and complicating the fight against inflation. On the market front, the prospect of a ceasefire extension has lifted sentiment in parts of Asia this morning, with Japan's Nikkei touching a record high. Elsewhere, the picture is less upbeat. US markets closed in the red, while back home, the JSE all-share fell 1.3% in yesterday's trading session. This as local investors reacted to global uncertainty before the latest ceasefire signals emerged. In currency markets, the rand remains under pressure, weighed down by rising inflation risks and softer business confidence. It's currently trading at 16.49 to the dollar, 22.28 to the pound, and 19.36 to the euro, reflecting a market still navigating a mix of geopolitical tension and economic fragility. Now that's a wrap of your business and markets news for now. I'll be back at 7:30 with another update. This is Ndauleng Lechela for the National Briefing.
Africa in Focus with Advocate Sipho Mantula on SAFM.
Attention all shoppers.
Our supermarket shelves are full of unhealthy food. It's often hard for me to know which foods are good for my family. The information on packaged food is complicated and hard to understand. I wish we had easy-to-understand warning labels on foods high in salt, sugar, and saturated fat. We have the right to know what's in our food. Support front-of-package warning labels on unhealthy packaged foods. And sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all, under the theme Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAfm will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
You can become a victim of a legal problem, wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Top Billing brings you the very best in lifestyle, luxury and inspiration, from breathtaking homes and dream destinations to exclusive access to the people shaping culture and success. This is where style meets substance and every story shines. Tune in to the new season of Top Billing on S3, Thursdays at 7 p.m. starting on the 30th of April. Repeats Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. You can also stream Top Billing live on SABC Plus, available on all app stores and on your smart TV. Top Billing, the best of the good life.
Africa in Focus with Advocate Sipho Mantula on SAfm.
Advocate Mantula, good morning to you. Today, of course, is a special edition of Africa in Focus. Do you want to take over?
Refreshing morning, Sis Cathy, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Indeed, Sis Cathy, it is a special edition where we are crossing live to Dakar, to Senegal, to speak to our international editor, Ms. Sophie Mukwena, who have just ended the 10th Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security under the theme Africa Facing the Challenges of Stability, Integration and Sovereignty. What sustainable solutions? It will be interesting when we are connecting with Sis Sophie now, as we are welcoming Sis Sophie, Jumbo Africa, and welcome to Africa in Focus on the national briefing.
Thank you so much.
Also, if you just take us through the key outcomes that came there. I saw there was a launch of an editorialist, but what were the key outcomes that came from this 10th Dakar International Forum on Peace and Security?
For me, what was the main focus was the issue of how you balance the sovereignty of the African continent without compromising building partnerships, particularly on issues that are related to trade and investment, and also support for peace and security. The other important issue is a call by the president of Sierra Leone and the president of Senegal that what we see in West Africa and the Sahel region in relation to instability and the coups, it is because the citizens of that region in those countries that are affected lost hope in the political system and the electoral system. The states lost legitimacy, and therefore young people who are restless, and we know they constitute a large population of the continent, when they went to the street, the military saw a vacuum and stepped in, and therefore a call that electoral promises must be fulfilled. If you don't fulfill the electoral promises as a governing party, you will lose legitimacy. An issue of corruption and poverty, if you don't address them, you will lose legitimacy and electoral support.
Interesting observations, Sophie, that you are sharing with us. And what was the role of information and communication now, as you are part of the media team that was there, in terms of what then will be the role of media in terms of combating disinformation and misinformation, and looking at what is happening geopolitically with the conflicts globally, but what then is the role of the media in the African continent?
the importance of the media is to ensure that much as we now have what we call robust media citizenry, we have to ensure that whatever information we come across on different platforms of communications, like your digital space, websites, Twitter, and other, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you have to verify. But also, they can be dangerous because information can be shared to millions around the world. And that can even lead to instability at times because you are able to influence. And when you do that, it can be right information or information that hasn't been verified. And therefore, the issue of AI also, where we see people can doctor their voices and the pictures, and one would regard that as an official statement from a particular newsmaker or people or announcement, and that can lead to misinformation and therefore and disinformation. And therefore, at all times, particularly at this time, when you look at what's happening in America, when we wake up in the morning, President Donald Trump has sent 120 messages on social media, confusing. You'd recall when we were on the tenterhooks, so fearing that there's going to be a massive war in Iran. At midnight, he decided to suspend the military action. The same yesterday. And then he decides to extend ceasefire when everybody was tense. And therefore, we live in a very, very, very difficult time.
Wow, Sophie, lastly, but at least your cultural landscape, I saw you in the Gore Island. What can you tell our listeners about visiting Senegal? What can they go to? You went to the door of no return.
Well, I think there's a lot to see in Senegal. You really see a country that has seen it all in the Atlantic and route for slavery, or those who were taken abroad, removed from the continent by force, some perishing in the Atlantic, either going to Europe or to America. And that island where you would have these Black Africans taken there, measured on weight and all of that before there was a decision that they have been taken away, and how brutal colonialism was. And I'm told there's one small cell there where we are told that those who were resisting were put in there. And because President Mandela visited the island in 1991, they say when he entered that cell, before going to look at the door of no return, he did shed tears. You'd recall that he also spent time at Robben Island. So the brutality of colonialism and apartheid, when you visit these kinds of places, you get a better understanding where as a continent we come from. And I think the decision by the president of Ghana and the AU giving him that mandate to push for the UN to adopt a historic, we don't report enough about it, the resolution that slavery was a worst crime against humanity, the same way apartheid was declared a worst crime against humanity. And therefore, now it becomes a topical issue in terms of whether there should be reparations. And therefore, these are some of the places a must visit if possible, so that we always know where we come from and that we know where we are going, because we can simply forget and say apartheid was better or colonialism was better, but those who live in those areas, it is a daily stark reminder of the brutality of oppression, particularly colonialism.
Asante sana, Sophie. Thank you very much for coming to us live and direct from Senegal, Dakar, from the 10th International Peace and Security Forum. Rale Bohamme.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Couple of big ones that we're watching this morning. The crash scene at Merrydale, N3 South, that has just been cleared. The backlog coming through from Howick should get a move on. The M7 Durban side heading towards the Bluff. Major delays heading from Queensborough down through the N2 towards Bel Air Wakesley. The M7 going out towards the N2 and Wakesley Road coming up off Sadia. Major delays in that area. Cape Town police are dealing with an incident on the Kuberg Road. Kuberg Road South closed at Montague Drive. That's a bit of a nightmare. And lights are down Bosmansdam Road and Montague Drive. Very heavy traffic again today in that whole sort of Edgemead Summer Greens area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Moro, Moni, Dumila, Bonjour, Habari. You arrived in South Africa to build something better. New place, new challenges, new responsibilities. Now you can with the Mama Money bank account. Pay your rent, take care of your daily needs, build your life, and when your family needs you, you don't wait. You send money home, quickly, securely, from wherever you are. Because this is more than money, it's progress. Buy your Mama Money card today at Pick n Pay or a Mama Money agent. Mama Money, now you can.
This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
It's 6:53. We continue coverage of some of our big stories of the day right here on the National Briefing. The Justice and Constitutional Development Minister, Mamloko Kubai, has instructed all state attorney officers to convene quarterly stakeholder forums. At the same time, she's also calling on major firms to withdraw their legal challenge against the legal sector code. It follows a meeting in Pretoria earlier this week with legal practitioners where concerns were raised that government work is still being concentrated among a small pool of established firms, leaving many black practitioners, particularly black women, without access to briefs. The minister joins us on the line. Minister Kubai, good morning to you. Thanks for your time this morning. So you've also spoken about resistance from established practitioners within the legal fraternity. Who exactly were you talking about, and what tools do you have to break that resistance?
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to your listeners. What the background is in terms of the work that we are doing. So we went through and presented to the practitioners the statistics. So what we had agreed is that we've got to try and make sure as government that we brief previously disadvantaged individuals, especially black women. So in that report, practitioners actually questioned the figures that we have to say it's not really in line with the experiences on the ground. So we had to start and say, okay, how do we fix that, as you were saying? Then I had to say, okay, let's get the state attorney's offices to have quarterly stakeholder meeting so that there can be some level of oversight, because you would not be able to say this is exactly, and our caution to them was that we're not looking that somebody must go into this quarterly stakeholder meeting and start saying, no, I must be briefed, me particularly, but it must be about generic practice of allowing for opportunities for previously disadvantaged individuals. So what happens is that the majority of the brief would go to white males. And when it's law firm, it will be law firms that are bigger. And then the segregation as well will go in terms of those who are within urban areas will have better opportunities, and those who are in the remote small areas, then they do not have. So we agreed that we must sit around the table and work out a methodology that can work. Feedback again was that some of our requirements in terms of prescripts that we provide on RFQs are actually prohibiting. So they make it difficult for a person. For example, you find that they call a person, they send these things, there's quite documentation that is needed. If you are a small law firm that does not have a capacity of many employees or enjoy the benefit of many employees, you are likely not to be in compliance because you're battling to find all this information that is required that ordinarily will be in the hands of the state.
Let's talk about the state attorney's office, because that seems to be where many of the challenges are stemming from, including the credibility of this data.
Yes. Look, the issue, we acknowledged it because it's something that we are starting to work with. And that's why we said to the practitioners, we want to introduce a new method of doing things. For example, Minister Lamula started the issue of charter codes, to say, in order for us to be able to evaluate ourselves as government, how we are doing and where we are, but also set these parameters, because work is not only in government but in private sector. Some of these big firms are getting work from government. Therefore, let's set targets. And that's the one that is taken to court. So we are saying, while we're working with that, let's make sure that from government point of view, let's put systems within state attorneys' offices, working together with partnership and stakeholders to be able to explain the processes that are needed, to be able to give feedback. For example, another one that I gave feedback was that sometimes they get appointed, the practitioners, and then there's poor drafting. So we asked, should we be able to put together a training forum, a training module at Justice Mabandla Bridget, the Bridget Mabandla Justice College for drafting to support especially new entry legal practitioners, so that they are able to harness their skills, so that when they are given briefs, they no longer they're cancelled and people say we don't want them because they don't draft properly. But we also gave them feedback about even representation and preparation, because when government department goes to state attorneys, they end up preferring a particular individual because of the work that this person has done. And I said, excellence must be across the board. It shouldn't be that there's one person and then all departments are running to this person. Not because obviously they are discriminating, but because they are wanting a service. No one wants to go to court and lose the case because a representative came unprepared. So we were having that broad conversation, giving feedback from the client departments and themselves giving feedback to me on areas that still needs to be improved.
One of the challenges raised by Advocates for Transformation was not only around the issues that you have raised, whether it's the quality of work, but the overall briefing and the briefing patterns, right? But there's also another issue of corruption, and this idea that legal representatives are being put in a position where they have to decide if they're going to be participating in corruption by way of the structure of their agreements that they're entering into. Speak to us about that, because that also is a big issue.
Look, with that one, we've asked for specifics, because we need to be able to get the specifics so that they can help you to understand what you are dealing with. What I understood to be the major challenge, especially for African Advocates for Transformation mainly, was the payment system. So you would do work and then you are not paid on time. And they would make allegations that, for example, in order for you to get a payment, an official would require a particular money so that they can process your payment. And that I've given them to say the parameters to say payments must be paid within 30 days unless if there's a dispute. They have a right to escalate it until to the minister if their payments have not been done. For example, there was a problem in Johannesburg. I was approached by Johannesburg Bar that the Johannesburg office was not paying invoices. We went, we intervened. Definitely we found that the person who was heading the office was actually the problem. We also found that in terms of system, they had done their own thing to remove the delegations of authority in terms of payments. So we reinstated that, we solved the problem. So I said to them, that's why the engagements are important, because you might think that things are running smoothly only to find that somebody has changed the system. And therefore, the continuous feedback, even to myself as the minister or any other minister, it's important, or any other senior leader, it's important because you put system and believe that they are working. So that was the issue that was raised as well.
Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Mamoloko Kubai, thanks for your time. It's just after 7 o'clock.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, 2 people killed in Limpopo bus crash and ruling expected in Sergeant Nkosi's bail application. Good morning. 2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Vervoer Tunnel in Limpopo. The crash happened after midnight on a sharp curve on the mountainous road. Traffic officers, police and the emergency services are attending to the scene. More details are expected later. The Pretoria North Magistrates Court is today expected to rule on suspended police sergeant Fanny Nkosi's bail application. Nkosi, a member of the organised crime unit, was arrested following a raid at his Pretoria North home, where dockets, explosives and ammunition were found earlier this month. He faces charges including theft, defeating the ends of justice and unlawful possession of ammunition and explosives. Nkosi has told the court he could afford 10,000 rand bail. Rifilwe Mekwa reports.
Nkosi has been in custody for more than 2 weeks. It remains to be seen whether Magistrate Thandite Ledi will grant him bail or favour with the National Prosecuting Authority. The state is opposing his release, stating that the evidence suggests he was involved in protecting individuals linked to serious violent crimes and may evade trial. While the defence previously argued there was no evidence that the dockets that were found during the raid at his home were stolen, and charges he's facing don't relate to his evidence at the Madlanga Commission.
The Madlanga Commission has confirmed the inquiry has received correspondence from lawyers representing the family of the late Hilary Gardie. Commission spokesperson Jeremy Michaels says the matter will be assessed to determine whether it falls within the Commission's terms of reference, adding that it's too early to make a determination. The family has urged the Commission to summon suspended Mpumalanga Police Commissioner Daphne Manamela to testify under oath after she alleged that there was interference in Gardie's murder investigation. Gardie, the daughter of EFF Deputy President Godrich Gardie, was shot and killed in 2022. Finance Minister Ino Godongwana has told Parliament he's applying his mind on the issue of the fuel levy. This after government reduced the levy temporarily by 3 rand per litre from the 1st of this month. Godongwana was participating during the consideration of the Division of Revenue Bill, which was passed by the National Assembly yesterday. He was responding to calls in the National Assembly for fuel relief for the duration of the US-Israel war on Iran.
At the appropriate time possible, because I promised South Africans that at the end of the month I'm going to do a review. After consulting the stubborn minister, Mandashi, I will probably make the necessary announcement on the 28th on Tuesday.
And finally, the company behind ChatGPT has denied playing a role in a deadly shooting at an American university last year after prosecutors in Florida began a criminal investigation into the firm. A gunman killed 2 people and wounded 6 others at Florida State University in April last year. The BBC's Lily Jamali has the details.
Florida's Attorney General James Othmeyer said the 21-year-old suspect had asked ChatGPT for information about the best time to carry out the attack and what kind of gun and ammunition to use. An OpenAI spokesperson said the mass shooting was a tragedy, but insisted the company wasn't responsible. OpenAI maintains that the information used by the alleged gunman was already available on the internet. James Othmeyer acknowledged that his investigation was entering uncharted territory, but he noted that if ChatGPT were a person, it would be facing murder charges.
Recapping the top story, 2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Verwoerd Tunnel in Limpopo. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
You may or may not know the difference between gelato and ice cream, but you do know a great Outsurance deal when you see one. Get a car insurance quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash, SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headline. We're building to the Soweto Derby where Kaizer Chiefs have been warned they'll need to get the basics right. And we also bring you the Blitz Box. The world champions are back home on home soil. The details at around 7:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, lane closure of Pretoria, N1 South towards Stormful. So peak time traffic backlogging again through that Montana area. Not as bad as it can be, but it is heavy. Mike 1 Boyson through to Oxford Road in Parktown is the delay. N1 Soweto up to Gordon Road looking slow. And some big traffic on Malabongwe this morning. North riding through towards Stratham Park. Probably traffic light problems. Durban, a crash blocking the M7 between the N2 and Bel Air Road. Very heavy coming in from Queensborough this morning. Backlogs on the Wakesley Road heading up towards the M7. Highway as well. You might want to just sort of avoid that junction. The big truck crash that we had at Merivale has been cleared. Big backlog from Howick to clear through there. And Cape Town Police dealing with an incident on the Coburg Road coming out of Tableview. The road closed at Montague Drive, so major delays in that area. And also traffic lights down Bosman's Dam Road at Montague Drive, so major delay alert if you're around the Edgemead, Summer Greens, N7 highway off-ramps to Bosman's Dam Road trying to get to Montague Gardens and Canal Walk, Century City. It's a big mess. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The National Briefing on SAfm. Clarity, context, and conversation. This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
Nine after 7 o'clock, welcome to the second hour of the National Briefing as we bring you clarity, context and conversation. Coming up in this hour, the National Police Commissioner Cathy Mohlahlana has pleaded not guilty on 4 counts under the Public Finance Management Act linked to the 360 million rand Medicare 24 tender. The Independent Police Union weighs in on what this means for policing morale and trust. The big question is, will President Ramaphosa be forced to act? Also in this hour, Professor Thuli Madonsela returns to the reality check. This week, she's talking us through unity in diversity. Today, she focuses on the unfinished business of equality. As always, we'd love to hear from you throughout the show. The number to dial for our studio line 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. That's where you can send your voice notes and text messages 0614 104 107.
At Fly SAfmRadio, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger and do what they love. Visit flysafmradio.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school and you could be a winner. Fly SAfmRadio for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Tension has kicked in as the Proteas women are pumped up to win. However, the women in blue have an agenda to silence the hosts. This is the 3rd T20 International. Do not miss out on the exciting battle, South Africa versus India, on Wednesday, 22 April at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC3, with reports on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Briefing on SAfm. Weekday mornings from 6 to 9.
Well, there's uncertainty over the future of the National Police Commissioner, Cathy Mohlahlana, who appeared in court over allegations linked to a controversial health tender. Masemola will now be back in court on the 13th of May, where he'll join Cathy Mohlahlana and 12 other police officers in the dock. The 12 officers were arrested last month. The case comes amid ongoing concerns about governance and accountability within law enforcement agencies, and also at a time when public confidence in policing is at an all-time low. It, of course, raises questions about oversight, leadership, and the standards expected of those at the top. Unfortunately, though, the appearance of the current National Commissioner seemed all too familiar by way of the controversies that have plagued the officers of the National Commissioner. If we look down into the archives, we unfortunately have a history of National Commissioners that are mired in controversy. If we take you back to 2010, we can begin with the one that really changed the tone of history. And that was when the then National Police Commissioner, Jackie Selebi, was sentenced to 15 years for corruption by Judge Mayor Joffe, calling him an embarrassment to the office of the police commissioner. This is what was said at the sentencing of Jackie Selebi.
The sentence of 15 years imprisonment is an appropriate sentence in the present matter. A sentence of 15 years imprisonment is not disproportionate to the crime and the needs of society, so that an injustice would be done by imposing that sentence. 29. In the result, the accused is sentenced to 15 years in prison. Mr. Selebi, you were an embarrassment in the witness box. Firstly, you were an embarrassment to the office that you occupied. It is inconceivable that the person who occupied the office of National Commissioner of Police could have been such a stranger to the truth.
Bekicele also found himself in the firing line, also suspended as the National Commissioner.
Comrade Jackie went through court systems and was found guilty. Mohlahlana was acting, and there are allegations that are going on, but the rest of the answer will come with the National Commissioner. Things that were said that I was not fit for the office said by the court of law, and the judge in the court of law said that was nonsense. That was overturned by the court of law in the Republic of South Africa. If you follow that story, which means you can go and ask whoever fired Cele on the wrong basis, because the court of law in the review said Cele did not do anything wrong.
Another previous commissioner is Khumujo Phahlane. This is then Police Minister Fikile Mbalula explaining his suspension.
There are clearly serious allegations of misconduct on the part of Lieutenant General Mohlahlana, which also impacts on his fitness to hold office as the acting National Commissioner. The allegations against Lieutenant General Mohlahlana raise questions of conduct that would be inconsistent with expectations that attend to those who hold leadership in our police service.
The first female National Commissioner, Ria Pierre, also did not escape controversy.
Since my suspension last year in October 2015, I have watched with both shock and disappointment at the relentless campaign to harass and convict me in a court of public opinion without regard for any due process. I find yesterday's announcement by the acting head of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, Israel Khamanyani, that charges are to be brought against me for allegedly defeating the ends of justice very concerning and opportunistic.
Let me welcome onto the show the president of the Independent Police Union of South Africa, Bethuel Nguna. Mr. Nguna, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. That, of course, sets us up because we have been here before, or at least it feels very much like that, seeing yet another commissioner mired in controversy, this time also ending up in the country's courts.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners. This marks another darkest era in the leadership hierarchy of the South African police services. We are very much concerned that SAPS has been on the headlines for all the wrong reasons all the time. And now with another national commissioner being charged with the contravention of the PMFA linked with a major tender scandal where 360 million is involved. It's further tainting the already dented image of the South African police services, as we know that he is not the first one to face such criminal charges.
In your view, what needs to happen now?
Cathy, the South African police services needs stability. So even though there is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, the Independent Policing Union of South Africa calls for the precautionary suspension of the National Commissioner. As here, there's an issue of institutional integrity. And if the state alleges that he failed PMFA duties, where 360 million tender is involved, and with the arrest of 12 other police officers being arrested, keeping him in office may create a perception of conflict and may also raise double standards concern as junior members get suspended immediately for misconduct. And also public trust has to be restored. And even though NASCOM is charged with PMFA failures, yet to the public, a 360 million tender and 12 police officers arrested, all this sounds as corruption. And also there are precedents that has been set as per the clips that you've been playing. So it will only be show accountability on the part of the national president to place General Masemula on precautionary suspension.
Let me thank you for your time then this morning. That is Bethuel Nguna, who is the president of the Independent Police Union of South Africa. Listening into that conversation, Dr. Cathy Mohlahlana, who is an independent researcher on crime with a speciality on serious and violent crimes. Dr. Mohlahlana, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. As I was saying earlier, the difficulty is that we have been here before. In fact, there was a time where there was a reference made to the position of National Commissioner as having become somewhat of a poisoned chalice. What is it about this position and those who occupy it that the cycle repeats itself?
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. The National Commissioner is as strong as his management team. I've listened to the previous speaker and to the other information regarding the suspension and conviction of the previous commissioners. On this one, I'm sitting on the fence. The general's been charged for 4 counts contravening the CPMF. It is serious allegations, but it is not theft and what's the other charges, and embezzlement and corruption. So I'm sitting on the fence on this one. Myself is to build trust, is not to suspend the commissioner. He may have failed in not to abide by the 7 principles of financial management or adhere to the elements of financial management. That's a separate issue. It is now a criminal act, but it's not you cannot compare it with corruption, theft, and all those things. So my opinion is, do not suspend him. You know, he was summoned to appear before court. 2-3 weeks before yesterday. So if it was such an urgent matter, they should have arrested him. So to be summoned mean they still trust in the man. He was in the position for 3 weeks before the court day yesterday. And I do not want to promote him or act as his legal counsel. So for trust in the community, in the South African community, and especially for the South African police members, and there are lots and lots of good police officials, do not suspend the commissioner. That's my personal view.
And to the extent that his negligence and oversight in executing his duties, where the PFMA is concerned, has cost the South African Police Service, how then do you propose there should be accountability over that? Because surely the picture of a national commissioner who is undergoing court processes, appearing in the dock alongside the controversial figure of the moment, which is Vusimusi Cathy Mohlahlana, that is not a good look at all. From a public perception point of view, do you think that that's something that the SAPS can afford in this moment?
No, they cannot afford it, but we must not lose sight. He's not yet joined with those other criminals. He's got 4 charges, MPFA, and that is that.
But the next time he appears in court, he will be appearing alongside them and 12 other police officers that were arrested in this matter.
That is what they said they will do. Let's wait and see. And then we make a decision if he is fit to hold office, yes or no. Remember, you can say he's the boss of the South African Police Service. He relied on other people that must feed him information. And we do not know what kind of information was fed to him. We must now rely on what he said in the commission and in parliament. My concern is the trust, also the trust of the police, the public, but the police officials. If we are going to fire this man now or suspend him, what will it do to the morale of the South African Police Service? However, if the rules said that he must be suspended, then let's suspend it. And then we must also look what is the reason why we suspend people. Will he interfere in the investigation? It is a serious misconduct, but you cannot compare it with others, and he's not yet joined. I don't think we must go.
So, Dr. Lochner, if the president then asked the national commissioner to give him reasons for why he should not suspend him, you believe that he would have a credible case to put to the president for why he should not be suspended?
Yes, I do so. But if I am the general and I receive such a letter, I would accept the suspension, because the long knife is out for the general, and I will go on suspension and prepare myself for what is coming. So that's why I'm telling you, I'm split on this. And you know, the police is in tatters. And now to take the boss, it is a tender of millions and millions of rands. But how many other tenders are there that was successfully handled? I do understand it. It is lots and lots of money, and what it did create. And at this present moment, I will not. Okay, that's my viewpoint.
Dr. Henny Lochner, independent researcher on crime, with a speciality on serious and violent crimes. So you've heard the view then of both our guests. The union is saying he must be suspended. Dr. Lochner says not so quickly. Where do you sit on this one? 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. I'll take your calls shortly.
At Fly SAfmRadio, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger and do what they love. Visit flysafmradio.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school and you could be a winner. Fly SAfmRadio, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
When you listen to me, I feel important. When you hug me, I feel safe. When you talk with me, I learn.
Your love and attention helps your child grow strong and confident. Listen, comfort, and connect with him, because every child deserves to feel seen, heard, and loved.
Visit holdmyhand.org.za.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
28 after 7 o'clock, you're listening to the national briefing. Thabo, you're calling us from Germiston. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Go for it, Thabo.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. Cathy, let me start here. I agree 100% with your previous, the gentleman, Dr. Mohlahlana. I agree 100% with him, and I'll tell you the reasons why. Cathy, since when? Failure to conduct a PFMA, oversight can only become criminal, after your employer has discovered that it's not just failure to conduct overall oversight. You have also taken money and things like that. And your employer would have to refer you, would have to go and open charges for criminal prosecution. And, in this case, the complainant, obviously, it would be your employer. But in this case, IDEC is a problem, Cathy. IDEC is a problem. They are pushing political narratives. And we know for a fact that IDEC is working with various criminal syndicates and political parties like the DA, whereby they want to capture, the soul of the SAPS. And this has been happening. And we know this, Cathy, as listeners. It has been happening. And also, we want to be educated here to say, since when, how many senior leaders in government or politicians in parliament, and all, how many of them have been charged with PFMA violation?
Okay, all right, Thabo, let's leave it there. Mangani, you're in East London. Good morning.
Good morning, Katie. Katie, I'm going to align myself with Thabo and the doctor. Here's my challenge with this situation. We have a long list of complaints that have been made at the Madlanga Commission and in Parliament. And in that long list and names being mentioned, I can't count to 5 where I heard of instances where the commissioner was being cited in all of that corruption. And it is surprising to then find IDEC jumping for the head of the commissioner when there's a long list of people below the commissioner who are the day-to-day overseers of those processes. Now, for me, this is worrisome because it then suggests what Mkwanazi had said, that the plan was originally to remove the commissioner so that the rest of the campaign to capture the SAPS could be completed.
Okay.
And I'm seeing IDEC here being complicit in that process.
Mangani, we'll leave it there. Thanks for those contributions. We will make more time to take your calls a little later on within this hour. It's time for your latest 7:30 news headlines. Good morning, Anne.
Good morning. Thanks, Cathy. In the headlines, 2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Verwoerd Tunnel in Limpopo. The crash happened after midnight on a sharp curve on the mountainous road. The Pretoria North Magistrates Court is today expected to rule on suspended Police Sergeant Fanny Nkosi's bail application. Nkosi, a member of the Organised Crime Unit, was arrested following a raid at his Pretoria North home, where dockets, explosives and ammunition were found earlier this month. And voters in Virginia have approved a redrawing of the state's election districts, which could help the Democratic Party win control of the U.S. House of Representatives. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning crash on Joburg's M1 North at the Clue. That's the reason for the delays coming up from Randburg. Randburg through four ways, through Stunning Hill up towards Woodmead. Very heavy into that scene. The bike one from Boysons all the way through to Sandton looking fairly heavy. And the N3 jam-packed. N3, N12 routes out of Germiston, Alberton on your way up towards Bedfordview. R24 arriving from the airport. There's a crash by the N12 merge. So that's quite a heavy backlog as well. And if you're coming through Pretoria, N1 South roadworks at Storenville Road. Delays coming through from Montana and quite heavy on the N4 Emilafeli Highway, lining up into the N1 interchange. Durban, the M7, very heavy, whether you're Bluff bound or Pinetown bound this morning, particularly Bluff bound around the M7 highway. Just off the highway, there's a really big delay on Wakesley Road coming up towards the M7 as well. And a stationary truck blocking the N3, glide off to the M13 at Paradise Valley. You might have to push further and exit at the Richmond Road instead. Cape Town, the Koeberg Road is reopened at Montague Drive after an earlier police incident, but there's a lot of traffic exiting Table View on that side today. And the other big one, no traffic lights, Bosmansdam Road, Montague Drive, major delay alert through Edgemead, Summer Greens, N7 off-ramps. If you're trying to get to Century City, Canal Walk or Montague Gardens area, it's a heavy one again this morning. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai Khan, we're staying with soccer. Chiefs ready to rise to the Soweto Derby challenge.
Yes, Cathy, Kaiser Chiefs saying they're ready. Pirates say we've been ready. So there we go. The battle lines are drawn.
You see what you did there. Why can't we just leave it with the fact that Chiefs is saying they're ready? You had to end off with Pirates also being ready.
Yeah, all right. Let's just go out with being neutral. I don't know what that is when it comes to a derby because, we are ready, I think, here as well, bringing you all the build-up that you need for the blockbuster Soweto derby. Kaiser Chiefs looking to rise to the occasion against an in-form Orlando Pirates side this weekend. Pirates come into the clash full of confidence. Chiefs will back themselves to deliver, and that's when it matters most in a fixture where form often goes out the window. With pride and bragging rights on the line, another classic showdown is expected at FNB Stadium this Sunday. Looking abroad, Chelsea's struggles continue after a 3-0 defeat to Brighton, their fifth straight league loss without scoring. It's their worst run in over a century, with pressure mounting on the head coach Liam Rossignol as the Blues slip further down European contention. And we also have a box news with the Bliss Box. After conquering Hong Kong and lifting the long-awaited Sevens title, we'll be back on home soil. Head coach Philip Snyman says while the moment is historic, the mindset remains the same, grounded, focused. Here's Snyman on why humility is still at the heart of the Bliss Box team.
Well, one can just be grateful, surrounded by great people. This is a special team, all the players that's on tour, but also the players back at home, and SA Rugby for supporting us all the way. So a really special feeling. But the biggest thing is we need to stay humble. That's also what we stand for, keep our feet on the ground.
On to tennis, and Julia Grabber battled past Paula Badosa in 3 sets at the Madrid Open, finishing strong with the dominant 6-love decider. Meanwhile, Spain's Caitlin Quevedo defeated the veteran Venus Williams in straight sets to progress to the next round. And finally, Liv Golf have rebranded Smash GC to OKGC, marking its first US-based team identity. Oklahoma native Taylor Gooch will captain the side as the tour looks to strengthen its global footprint and fan engagement. That's your sport on the National Briefing. We'll be back swinging it with more at the top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Market Brief with Ndauleng Lechela on SAFM.
Ntauleng, good morning again. The South African Reserve Bank, it's flagging stagflation risks.
Morning, Cathy. Now, Governor Lesetja Kgalekgale highlighted this risk in the SARB's latest monetary policy review. And stagflation refers to a low growth environment combined with high inflation pressures and weak labor market conditions. South Africa, of course, a special case as we are already dealing with a high unemployment environment and downbeat growth. With that being said, we have managed to keep inflation tamed, but with higher global oil, gas, and fertilizer prices, that's likely to filter through to inflation through transport, food, and production costs. Although headline inflation is still hovering near the 3% target, the SARB warns the outlook has deteriorated following recent global shocks. Energy price pressures could trigger second-round effects across the economy, keeping inflation elevated for longer. While the I think I got cut off there.
Good morning, Ntauleng. Yes, it looks like we had an interruption with the connection to you. Please feel free to continue.
All right, as I was mentioning there, while we have seen inflation hovering near the 3% target, the SARB has warned that the outlook has deteriorated following the global shocks. Energy price pressures could, of course, trigger second-round effects across the economy, keeping inflation elevated for longer. Now, while the central case still sees inflation returning to target by late 2027, risks are skewed to the upside, limiting the scope for near-term rate cuts and leaving open the possibility, the key phrase here is possibility, of rate hikes if expectations become unanchored. Now, it's against that backdrop that business sentiment has also weakened. The South African Chamber of Industry and Commerce reported a 3.3% decline in its business confidence index for March, the sharpest monthly decline in nearly a year. The pullback reflects a more fragile operating environment driven by a weaker rand, softer equity markets, declining commodity prices, and lower import activity. Renewed geopolitical tensions added further volatility and briefly reignited concerns around energy-driven consumer prices. That said, the decline follows a period of steady improvement in morale, supported by stronger commodities as well as easing inflation, suggesting that this is more of a short-term cautionary dip than a sustained downturn in business conditions. But only time will tell when we get some of the other prints in the upcoming months. Then turning to markets, volatility remains the dominant theme. Local investors will get a clearer read today on how elevated oil prices are filtering into inflation, with the latest consumer price data for March due at 10 a.m. Ahead of that print, the local currency is steady, retracing earlier losses. The rand at 16.43 to the dollar, 22.23 to the pound, and 19.32 to the euro. Oil is trading slightly lower at around $97 a barrel, despite comments from President Trump suggesting the ceasefire extension will hold, though markets remain cautious on durability. Equity markets remain choppy. U.S. futures are in the green, while the Asian markets are mixed. That's the picture for now. Catch you bright and early tomorrow morning for the latest in market and business news. I'm Ntauleng Lechela.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Locally, we've seen an increase in petrol, in diesel, in paraffin. We inevitably are going to see an increase in food prices.
This current time needs for us to move to highly structured financial conversations in our households. We need to account for our money, stick to our budgeting, understand where are the leakages. This is the time to maybe perhaps sit and look at your bank statements for the past 3 months and say, where's my excessive spending?
Siba Njoba joins us, certified financial planner and wealth manager.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. The National Briefing on SAfm. Clarity, context, and conversation. This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
You're listening to the National Briefing. It's 7:42. I see your calls still coming through on the lines. We will be taking your contributions on 086 000 2032. We'll do that shortly. For now, we're going to get into the reality check for today. This week, we're joined by Professor Thuli Madonsela. And as I've said, this segment exists to help us pause, reflect, and think seriously about the state of South Africa. Not just what is happening, but helping us understand why it's happening, what it's costing us as a country, and what must be done to change it. Almost just elevating from the everyday news cycle to provoke our thinking and enrich our discourse. This week, Prof. Madonsela started us off with her theme, Unity in Diversity, the promise stitched into our Constitution and our National Coat of Arms. Yesterday, she set the frame, social justice, Ubuntu, and the equal enjoyment of human rights and the humanity of each of us. Prof. Madonsela, good morning again. Today, you're moving us into equality.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Cathy. Good morning, listeners. Yes, I would like us to interrogate equality given the fact that our preamble enjoins us to create a society where everyone enjoys human rights, democracy, and social justice equally.
Let's get into it then and start with answering the question, what is equality?
Thanks, Cathy. Well, equality, according to Section 9 of the Constitution, primarily focuses on equal enjoyment of all rights and freedoms, equal treatment under the law, equal protection of the law. And this means you have to be treated with equal consideration. This is what the Constitutional Court said in Walker versus Pretoria Municipality. It's not just a formal protection, it is a substantive protection. So in South Africa, for example, equality is the same as equity. There is no difference.
And when you talk about the persistence then of structural inequality and our Gini coefficient, which of course is making us one of the most unequal societies in the world, what do our equality laws, including the BBEEA and the Employment Equity Act and the Equality Act, what role do those play?
Those laws, Cathy, have tried to equalize opportunities and also to prevent discrimination. So equality has two components: the right not to be discriminated, in other words, not to be treated less favorably than someone else when maybe opportunities are being extended, resources are being dished out, benefits are being given, and privileges are being given to people. And so these laws have prohibited discrimination. And you will recall that under colonialism and apartheid, by virtue of your skin color, your gender, and sometimes disability, the law treated you unfavorably. So, for example, it would reserve jobs for whites, it would take away land from black people, it would take away houses from black people and give them to white people. It would deny black people an opportunity to be paid a certain amount. The state, starting from 1918, would say how much should you be paid as a black person, with intention to keep black people as working class and white people as the managing class and propertied class. So that's now prohibited. But the second component of equality goes beyond anti-discrimination. And let me go back to discrimination. So discrimination that is prohibited is both direct and indirect. What is indirect discrimination? Indirect discrimination would be when you don't say, I don't want women, but you impose an unnecessary barrier that will make only men come in. For example, you are recruiting firemen or fire people, and you then say the height should be 1.7 meters. And obviously we know that people who are tall are generally men, so automatically it's going to be men that get the job. So the court would then say it wants a rational connection between the requirement you are making, because the requirement disproportionately excludes women. And if there's no direct relationship between the requirement, the court is entitled to assume that you're putting this to exclude women, but under a pretext. So that's indirect discrimination. But equality in our courts, as I said on Monday when we started, includes positive measures or reparative measures to deal with structural inequality that was caused by the past. Now, so these laws that we've spoken about, three, the Broad-Based Black Economic Empowerment Act, Employment Equity Act, and the Promotion of Equality and Prevention of Unfair Discrimination Act, all prohibit discrimination, but also they impose measures to advance equality. But despite that, we are, as you said earlier, the most unequal society in the world, or at least one of the most unequal societies in the world. And in so being one of the most unequal societies in the world, you will note that the inequalities are abnormal. They are primarily racial. You can check, for example, the ownership of wealth in our country. It is predominantly racialized. The ownership of businesses, it's in the JSE, for example, Black business ownership is at about 29.5%, despite BEE laws and despite everything else that has been done since 1994. Wealth, you will find that our Gini coefficient for wealth is not 0.63, it's 0.9 to 0.95, meaning the 10% at the top own 86% of the wealth. And if you look at the majority of those who own that wealth, it's white and it's men. Land, 72% white owned in rural areas. I can go on. Income disparities. White people earn about 5 times more than a white-headed household earns about 5 times more than an African-headed household. Senior management, although white people are 7.5% of the population, they occupy 61% of positions. Unemployment. I saw in response to your tweet and my tweet yesterday, some people saying, if you're a white, you are in danger of not getting a job. The statistics tell a different story. The majority of people that are unemployed are Black. We talk about 31.4% unemployment rate, but among white people, that unemployment rate is at about 7%. Even mortality, the likelihood of dying is racialized. Farm maidens, they complain about the murder of farmers, which is wrong. The murder of anybody is wrong. But the people who get killed most likely are black farm workers, farmers, and health. You're more likely to die of preventable health conditions if you're black. Education, owning a home, owning a car, owning a cell phone, everything has a racial component.
It speaks to the unfinished business, Prof, that we still have to get to as a country. For today, I'm going to have to pause it there. I will, of course, give you an opportunity to continue with your reflections, especially on this equality aspect of it, on the reality check with Professor Thuli Madonsela for this week.
Hello.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
SAFM traffic with momentum. Just as you plan your route, only 15% of households plan for retirement. Plan yours today. Speak to a Momentum accredited financial advisor for advice that meets your context.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Crash on Joburg M1 North at Buccleuch. That's the reason for the delays coming up from Randburg. Randburg through four ways, through Stunning Hill up towards Woodmead. Very heavy into that scene. The bike one from Boysons all the way through to Sandton looking fairly heavy. And the N3 jam-packed. N3, N12 routes out of Germiston, Alberton on your way up towards Bedfordview. R24 arriving from the airport. There's a crash by the N12 merge. So that's quite a heavy backlog as well. And if you're coming through Pretoria, N1 South roadworks at Storenville Road. Delays coming through from Montana and quite heavy on the N4 Emilafleni Highway lining up into the N1 interchange. Durban, the M7, very heavy whether you're Bluff-bound or Pinetown bound this morning, particularly Bluff-bound though, around the M7 highway. Just off the highway, there's a really big delay on Wakesley Road coming up towards the M7 as well. And a stationary truck blocking the N3, glide off to the M13 at Paradise Valley. You might have to push further and exit at the Richmond Road instead. Cape Town, the Koeberg Road is reopened at Montague Drive after an earlier police incident, but there's a lot of traffic exiting Table View on that side today. And the other big one, no traffic lights, Bosmansdam Road, Montague Drive, major delay alert through Edgemead, Summer Greens, N7 off-ramps. If you're trying to get to Century City, Canal Walk or Montague Gardens area, it's a heavy one again this morning. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Momentum is part of the Momentum Group Limited, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, they say. But my toaster isn't broken exactly. It just lands my toast on the kitchen floor. You see, some things only kinda never work. Like a financial plan based on generic advice. That's why Momentum accredited financial advisors take the time to understand you and only then apply their expertise. Advice meets your context. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
Siketi ke KB mo go Konstata. Nna I think it's that Ntate Masimola we must suspend him. It tla se mo tlhole it won't be a miracle. That's what South Africans say. These people they are in a high position for nothing. Thank you.
Morning, Cathy. How are you? This is Nati from Cape Town. I think Commissioner is in the same situation as Mohlahlana, so he should be suspended. Thank you.
Good morning, Cathy. Lennon Khwedi. Cathy. Aye, no, they cannot suspend the what's name, the commissioner. You know why? Because now the problem is that once they suspend him, and those who are asking for his suspension, they will be the ones to run back to the criminals and tell them that the door is open. You can also do as you please because the man that is giving you problems with the Ntlantamkwanas is been taken out of office. No, it can't be. The president must sit down and relax.
The National Briefing on SAFM with Cathy Mohlahlana.
It's 7:56. I'm still taking your calls on 086 000 2032. I also see your reflections coming through on the reality check. And today, of course, or this week, Prof. Madonsela speaking about unity in diversity, focusing on equality. And it looks like there's some of you that are not happy with the picture that she has painted around the state of inequality. But those are the facts. All she has done is talk about the facts. And she's getting us to ask, what does this say about the state of equality in our country? These are the conversations we have to be brave enough to confront. Mbuyisa, you're in Pietermaritzburg. Good morning.
Thank you, Cathy. You know, the issue, the arrest of the National Commissioner, I believe is just a delicacy for political scavengers. How we all know Masemola is not corrupt, no doubt about that. There's no evidence that Masemola is corrupt. Now you want Masemola to join 15 others. I mean, you have to be there, pay the fees. Every day he appears with others, when in fact he is charged for something that is almost an administrative charge. I believe here, IDEC is a rogue unit within the state, within the state. And here, Andre Johnson, I think he's settling the score. Because if you arrest Masemola, when are you going to arrest Andrea for employing, for recommending her husband to be employed? Because that's a pure corruption. I mean, you know, the panel for the interviews, they share the questions, those people, to avoid one repeating the question that has been asked by Anna. Surely her husband had unfair advantage as opposed to other contenders or the candidates there. When will she be arrested for that? There are no hands off Masemola. Masemola did not commit any. I mean, here you can see that it is an IDEC trying to settle something that actually we all see.
Okay.
That unit is very rogue.
Mbuyisa in Pietermaritzburg, we'll leave it there. Melusi, you in Germiston. Good morning.
Good morning, Captain, to the listeners. I also feel that Masemola mustn't be suspended purely on a reason that he did not commit any crime. He did not benefit from his oversight. And on the other hand, we must look at the bigger picture, because his wrongdoing, he did not benefit, number one, and number two, he did rectify his oversight by cancelling the contract. And we shouldn't lose sight on the bigger picture on what the SAP, what them and Nkatla Mkhwanazi as a team are doing to uncover rot within the police and within the government and within the system itself. So I don't think, suspending him would do any better to the police force. I think they should let him work and continue with his job.
Melusi, out in Germiston, interesting views coming through on this issue around the National Commissioner.
Yeah, I'm very triggered with what Prof. Thuli Madonsela is saying, actually. The inequality that we have in this country, especially here in Cape Town, it's just bad. Like, you don't see any black people where I work at my school, at a color-dominated area in Mitchell's Plain. Like, you don't see any black teachers being promoted. You only see colored people promoted. Only.
Outsurance Essential is made for older cars. Claims are paid in cash within 5 working days, and you choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
In our top stories, 2 people killed in Limpopo bus crash, and Limpopo municipality officials' bail bid resumes. Good morning. 2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Verwoerd tunnel in Limpopo. The crash happened after midnight on a sharp curve on the mountainous road. Traffic officers, police and the emergency services are attending to the scene. More details are expected later. The Pretoria North Magistrates Court is today expected to rule on suspended police sergeant Fanny Nkosi's bail application. Nkosi, a member of the organised crime unit, was arrested following a raid at his Pretoria North home, where dockets, explosives and ammunition were found earlier this month. He faces charges including theft, defeating the ends of justice and unlawful possession of ammunition and explosives. Nkosi has told the court that he could afford 10,000 rand bail. Rifilwe Mekwa reports.
Nkosi has been in custody for more than 2 weeks. It remains to be seen whether Magistrate Thandite Lady will grant him bail or favor with the National Prosecuting Authority. The state is opposing his release, stating that the evidence suggests he was involved in protecting individuals linked to serious violent crimes and may evade trial. While the defense previously argued there was no evidence that the dockets that were found during the raid at his home were stolen, and charges he's facing don't relate to his evidence at the Madlanga Commission.
Police say they are continuing their investigation into a house robbery at the home of alleged gang boss Jerome Donkey Boyson in Bellville South in Cape Town. Spokesperson FC van Wyk says they are still searching for the suspects. He says unidentified men allegedly entered Boyson's home while he was not present and tied up a female worker. Boyson and 11 others are currently on trial in the High Court for the 2017 murder of steroid kingpin Brian Weinstein. He was shot and killed in his Constantia home in 2017. Boyson's counsel told the court yesterday that he should leave the trial early due to the robbery. Police say their probe is continuing into stolen items at the premises. The bail application of 10 senior officials of the Molemole municipality accused of tender corruption is expected to resume this morning. The municipal manager, Emmanuel Magatu, and his co-accused were arrested for the alleged corruption in the awarding of an IT tender worth 38 million rand. Rendane Ralipaswa reports.
In the previous court proceedings, 2 affidavits written by accused number 1, Magatu, and accused number 2, Mabasa, were read out by the defense lawyer. Magatu and Mabasa want to be granted bail, stating that they are breadwinners in their families and that they are not flight risks. The other accused are expected to start bail applications. The court is yet to make a ruling.
And finally, voters in Virginia have approved a redrawing of the state's election districts, which could help the Democratic Party win control of the U.S. House of Representatives. The new map increases the party's chances of securing 4 additional seats in November's midterms. The BBC's Rory Gallimore has the details.
The Republican Party's majority in the House only amounts to a handful of seats, so Virginia's decision could have big consequences later this year. Democrats had argued they'd needed to change the map to counteract similar moves by Republicans in other states. The redrawing of electoral boundaries to favour a political party, known as gerrymandering, is only illegal in the US if it's based on race. Both sides have been rushing to tip the balance in their favour ever since President Trump encouraged Republicans to alter districts in Texas last year.
Recapping the top story, 2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Verwoerd Tunnel in Limpopo. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
Theft, accident and 1 million rand third-party cover for your older car. Outsurance Essential has it all. Get a quote. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185.
If you drive an older car, you can't miss this. For her 2015 Kia Picanto, 38-year-old Portia chose Outsurance Essential Car Insurance because there's no upfront access payable, so no unexpected out-of-pocket payments for her. For this and many more benefits, Portia pays only 512 Rand a month. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS car to 43185. That's car to 43185. Outsurance Insurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
A very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer action tonight. Stellenbosch FC head coach Gavin Hunt says his side will need to be at their absolute best when they faced Mamelodi Sundowns. And in rugby, Rassie Erasmus says he can't wait for the Springboks season to start. We'll find out more at around 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good news, the crash on Joburg M1 North at the Buccleuch interchange has been cleared. Left a backlog of traffic from Randburg through four ways, but it is quickly moving on. The bike one around Sandton, heavy going north from Parktown, south from Buccleuch, all backed up. Crash on the R24 as you come in from the airport and merge onto the N12. It's been cleared, but it's been replaced by a broken down vehicle near Boeing Road Bridge. So N12 and R24 routes into Galilee's stay heavy this morning. And a crash on the M1 North at John Foster, causing delays up from the Brockfontein interchange area. Durban's M7, if you are bluff bound this morning from Queensborough, that is all eased up quite nicely. That big queue that we had down to Bel Air at Wakesley out of the way. There is a stationary truck on the glide off from the N3 onto the M13 into Pinetown. Looks like motorists are having to push onto the N3 Mike 1 Richmond Road exit and then go into Pinetown that way. It's why it's all backed up. M4, Virginia Airport, very slow both ways. And Cape Town, possibly the biggest traffic light failure in terms of traffic impact in the city. It's Bosman's Dam Road at Montague Drive. Lights are out. Heavy from Edgemead, heavy from Bordersuck, N7 from Dunoon, southbound, N7 north from Goodwood. It's a real mission getting into that Montague Gardens Canal Walk area this morning. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The National Briefing on SAFM. Clarity, context and conversation. This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
After 8 o'clock, welcome to the third hour of the National Briefing. Coming up in this hour on the briefing debate, the SRD grant has been extended to March the 2027 and President Ramaphosa confirming a replacement is well on the way. Civil society and the Institute for Economic Justice say this is not enough. Treasury says we can't afford more. The question we put on the table this morning, should South Africa introduce a universal basic income grant and can the fiscus actually carry it? And then later in the hour on Built in Mzansi, the Cape Town startup that has raised 85 million rand to put towards AI-powered TB screening into the hands of community health workers. We'll find out more about that coming up in the show. As always, we'd love to hear from you. The number to dial 086 000 2032, and on the WhatsApp voice note line, send those WhatsApp voice notes and text messages 0614 104 107. You can absolutely continue the conversation going on some of the stories we've already covered this morning. This is the National Briefing.
Tension has kicked in as the Proteas women are pumped up to win. However, the women in blue have an agenda to silence the hosts. This is the third T20 International. Do not miss out on the exciting battle, South Africa versus India, on Wednesday, 22 April at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC3, with reports on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Briefing on SAFM. Weekday mornings from 6 to 9.
10 after 8 o'clock. Welcome to the third hour of the National Briefing. So for 8.2 million South Africans, and I want you to really zoom into that number. 8.2 million South Africans, 370 rand a month is the line between eating and not eating. In his 2026 State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa confirmed that the Social Relief of Distress grant will now run until March 2027. He said After that, it will be redesigned as a basic income support, linked, however, to work seeking. So it will be more of a job seekers grant. Now, when we look at what the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, has said, he said he set aside 36.4 billion rand to help to bridge the gap. However, the message from Treasury is clear. There is no more money to continue funding this grant. Civil society and the Institute for Economic Justice and Black Sash have argued that the country cannot afford to not go universal in a nation where the official unemployment rate sits at above 32% and youth unemployment is above 45%. Today we ask, should South Africa introduce a basic income grant, a universal basic income grant? Professor Alex van der Heever is chair of Social Security Systems Administration and Management Studies at the Wits School of Governance. He joins us this morning. Professor van der Heever, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Mokone Maja is a strategic engagement manager at the Institute of Race Relations. Makone, good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Kelly Housen is a workers' rights and social security senior researcher for the Institute for Economic Justice. Dr. Housen, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy.
Let me start with you, Prof. van der Heever. So when we look at what the Treasury is saying, this argument that there is no fiscal space for a universal grant, is that a technical constraint or is it a political choice being made but dressed up as a technical one?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. I don't think that National Treasury has a complete handle on exactly what both the economic and sort of tax implications are of social grants. They are a redistributive scheme. They're changing the structure of the distribution of income. They're not necessarily something that is pure cost for society, and they're changing essentially behavior in the country as a whole and changing the ability of many people who are vulnerable to effectively exercise a degree of agency in their lives. So those are very significant effects. But I don't think that National Treasury is not the only decision maker in this framework. And I think that sort of a more careful examination of the benefits of basic income as a strategy in South Africa is important. You mentioned this idea of linking it to employment. A basic income approach does not require a link to employment. It should never have any conditionalities applied. And in the normal way in which you structure such support frameworks, you don't create the link. You create essentially a grant which doesn't have any strings attached as your basic floor, your ambient income distribution in the country. You don't allow people's incomes to drop below this. So to create some kind of tie to employment is a fantasy. It doesn't work. It's impossible to actually generate for the kind of people who require the support. It's just a nonsense. But you do implement those where you're dealing with extensions to unemployment insurance or where you're providing social protection at a much higher level.
Okay.
So the issue is we need this as a floor, a proper social assistance framework for people who are in the employment ages from 18 to 59, and we need to basically grow a very important level or layer of income support at that level. So this is something we need in South Africa. It can't be introduced at peak levels immediately, but it is something that should be progressively implemented.
Kelly, you alongside other civil society organizations have argued that the 370 Rand a month does not even meet the food poverty line. What, in your view, would be a minimum meaningful value for the universal basic income grant?
We want to see a grant that begins at least the food poverty line. So the food poverty line now is 855 Rand per month, and that's the absolute minimum that an individual needs to meet their caloric intake requirements, so just to eat enough food, not to be starving. That doesn't afford them a nutritious or sufficiently diverse diet, and it doesn't help them meet any of their other basic needs, for instance, electricity, housing. But at least it is a minimum to stop people falling into absolute or extreme food poverty. But it should be increased over time. So the IEJs argued that the universal basic income can start at the food poverty line and increase over time to reach the upper bound poverty line, which is the minimum amount of money that you need to meet your very basic needs, so food and other needs. And the gradual kind of progressive increase of that grant is achievable and possibly more realistic within fiscal constraints that we may have. And it allows the benefits of the grant that Professor Sandenhever referred to kind of kick in over time to help the grant be sustainable within a macroeconomic framework.
Makoni, let me bring you in here. The IRR, of course, has consistently raised criticism around the universal basic income grant. What is your strongest case against it?
Well, I think, Cathy, we're trying to solve the problem by rather going around it. I think, as you've prefaced in the introduction, what we're looking at is a scenario of unemployment and poverty and increasing inequality over time. And what we've done is face or develop further constraints in our fiscus that actually inhibit government from being able to create conditions of job creation by increasing the state's spend on, social grants, rather than actually tackling the issue of how the government should increase jobs, which would be at things like its increase and its contribution to the country's gross fixed capital formation. When we're looking at gross fixed capital formation, we're looking at things that are made of concrete, things that are made of cement. We're looking at bridges, we're looking at roads, because those conditions create and incentivize investment, which ultimately leads to jobs. And so what we're seeing is that the number of social grant recipients have ballooned over time because the government has failed to get a hold of creating jobs and the right environment for that, but also that as we assess these conditions, we're addressing the demand side rather than the supply side of where the government can actually provide this basic income grant. Because again, the fiscus is stretched. We know the government turned a surplus for the first time this year, but also the government has failed to adequately serve its functions in terms of providing those basic services that are required of it by the Constitution. I'm looking here at things like education, housing, health. It has failed in those functions, and now we're looking to develop and create an even longer list of basic services that the government has to provide when it's already failing on its constitutional mandate. So I think what we should be looking at is how to actually solve the problem directly rather than going around it, which would be through job creation and letting go of those barriers to growth and job creation rather than, again, indirectly approaching the issue.
Makoni, when we look at how government has approached this matter, it's clear that solving the structural unemployment problem is not something that they necessarily are going to be able to do, right, overnight at least, or it's taken a couple of years to be able to turn that tide. There's a question of what happens in the meantime. One very much gets a sense that the reason why this grant is still in place is because they can't remove it without having an alternative. So what then would you suggest must be the answer until we're able to get this question around unemployment right?
So you're asking a question of sustainability. Can we sustain the instance in which people that have been receiving this grant are have this grant withdrawn. But the question also applies to the grant itself, because as Treasury has indicated, the issuance of these grants are not sustainable in itself. So we have a case of unsustainability on each side. And if we want to sustainably address the issue and systemically address the issue, then it does go back to how do we create conditions that will invite jobs and end the scourge of poverty. So I don't think we can quite escape that problem by addressing the temporary issue of whether or not people continue to receive grants. I think even looking into the future, this grant itself places our fiscus into a predicament that it just simply cannot hold through.
Alex, how do we deal with this question of the sustainability of the cost associated with this grant? Why should it be a cost that the state must bear, regardless of the suggestion that they cannot afford it?
Well, it's not that they cannot afford it. That's fundamentally incorrect. It's been in place for a number of years. It's at this current level, and what is being discussed, as was pointed out earlier, is that you look at progressively expanding it. The idea is not. This is actually meant to be a permanent intervention. It doesn't matter what our economic growth rate is. It's a redistribution of income that is required in order to balance the sort of social participation of all people in South Africa. It's not meant to be a temporary intervention. It's not meant to solve a particular problem today so that you can take it away in 5 years because you solved the problem. It is part of a permanent reconfiguration of the distribution of income, which is critical for a healthy society. The issue of focusing on economic growth and infrastructure and all of those issues, they are not mutually exclusive. This is not all of these are necessary interventions. The fact that infrastructure hasn't been invested in correctly and there's been massive corruption around that spending it's not a counter-argument to the introduction of this grant. Those need to happen, and they need to happen effectively, and you need to deal with where government is failing on those particular aspects. They are not substitutes for this kind of program. We need infrastructure, we need basic income. And that is actually the conversation. They're not trade-offs. There's also government only indirectly supports the creation of employment in South Africa through supply-side interventions and in some cases through a structural change in the distribution of income. All of that contributes to a healthy economic growth rate in South Africa. That has been shown around the world to be very effective. The idea, it's not unaffordable, and so the proposals have been that it is introduced at a certain level and progressively improved over time so that you don't shock the fiscus in any way. And this has been sort of very carefully analyzed from an economic perspective for a number of years. It is entirely feasible. And so the issue is that you can't see it as a cost. It's a restructuring of the distribution of income. It's money that is still being spent in the economy. It's just not being spent by me. It's being spent by 100 other people who get some income. So that restructuring is not a cost on the system, but you can't pressure the tax system beyond certain points in short periods of time, and that is why the recommendations are for progressively improving this grant over time as you can, and it has enormous positive effects at a social level and at an agency level. Actually, there a lot of the evidence showing that people are able to properly search for work, to properly invest in themselves if they are not trying to survive and scrape a living with no support, no income, in a precarious survival process in urban settings. You have to provide people with some ambient income in order to be able to effectively participate and determine a life path for themselves. It's a critical intervention. It cannot be done without.
Kelly, there is a big question around perception and dependencies, and this idea that the more you give out grants, the more people then come to rely on grants, the more people want grants, and the system sort of works against itself, because on the one hand you're trying to decrease dependency, but creating access increases dependency. Please help us understand that. I mean, is that a true reflection of what happens with those that receive grants?
Look, the idea of dependency is something that comes up in every conversation that we have about the universal basic income, and it's simply not supported by the evidence. We see this dependency narrative as something that is ideological, and unfortunately it almost arises from a reflex to kind of judge or blame poor people for their situation. Whereas in South Africa, our crisis is a structural one, structural unemployment. People are shut out of the economy through no fault of their own. And so what the evidence shows is that grants, social assistance, actually improves independence rather than creates dependency. We've got an enormous amount of evidence, both from South Africa and internationally, that shows, as Prof. Van Heber said, that when people receive income, they use it to better their own lives, to build sustainable livelihoods over time. So, for example, when people receive the SRD grant in South Africa, and bearing in mind it's only 370 Rand, their likelihood of entering into employment increased by 6 percentage points. So that shows that people were using that money to search for jobs, to print their CVs, to buy data, to buy transport, to search for jobs. There's some analysis that shows that the cost of searching for a job is over 1,500 Rand a month. So you can see how if you're living below the poverty line, below the food poverty line, you're having to make very difficult choices about whether to try to get into employment or whether to feed yourself and your dependents. There's also significant evidence that shows that people take that money and invest it into livelihoods activities like self-employment, informal trading, buying assets like livestock. In Namibia, when a basic income was piloted, income from self-employment increased by over 300% within a year. So these are very, very clear indications that what is preventing people from building livelihoods and from becoming independent is in fact poverty.
Okay.
We're all dependent in some way, and the question is just whether you are going to be dependent on an abusive partner or on a money lender or on community networks of food donation,
Kelly?
or whether... Go ahead, Cathy.
I'm going to ask you to pause it there. I want to give Makone a chance to come in before we wrap up. So, Makone, in your view, we've heard the cases and the references to statistics. What would be an alternative? Because what is seemingly clear is that the gap cannot be left open.
Well, I think I'll respond first to Prof. Van Heber because I'm afraid we haven't quite responded to the issue about whether the fiscus can actually afford it. And I don't think the response that, well, this is a redistribution, it doesn't require trade-offs is adequate, because of course it does require trade-offs. We've seen over the years that if you look at government line item expenditure, when debt service costs have increased, that money has directly come out of spending on things like healthcare and education. So this idea that this can be isolated as an issue, viewed as a bottomless pit of money that the government can continue fishing from, is simply not true. There are trade-offs, and those trade-offs come out of the government's ability to provide the basic constitutional rights that are required of it in terms of our constitution, in terms of our Bill of Rights, that we've seen it failing over the years. I have not made a case for corruption being the reason why government has failed to spend money on actually things that empower people, like creating jobs. I have not made a case for that. I am making a case, though, that while government looks to spend at more of these social protection services, it neglects to equip the economy with the things that it needs to create jobs. We know that the government's share of gross fixed capital formation is far below what's required of it in terms of the National Development Plan of 15% as a share of gross fixed capital formation by 2030. Alternatives, again, we cannot avoid doing the hard things, and that's creating jobs. So my case goes back to that we keep the social protections that we have in place. whilst we actively remove barriers to job creation, because only through that can people be sustainably lifted out of poverty. People can be granted dignity, people can live in agency, people can live independently of the state. But continuing to expand these social protection services does not afford them that.
Okay, Magoni Maja, she's with the Institute of Race Relations, Prof. Alex van der Heever with the Wits School of Governance, and Dr. Kelly Housen with the Institute for Economic Justice. That's where we'll leave it for this morning with our debate on the Universal Income Grant. It's just after 8:30.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, has called on the President to act without delay and suspend the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemola, following his court appearance yesterday. 2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Verwoerd Tunnel in Limpopo. And the first volunteers have been immunized in Britain with a vaccine to protect against a potential pandemic of bird flu. The vaccine is against the H5N1 strain. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. If you're going into Pretoria, quite a heavy backlog now into the Hatfield area. This is the N4, the Emerald Highway through the N1 and down towards sort of Hatfield to join Pretoria Street. Really big backlog worth avoiding. Also a big queue up on the N14 Krugersdorp Highway between the R55 Pretoria West exit and Brockfontein interchange. If you're heading through to Pretoria, again, you might want to off-ramp at the R55 to avoid that. Joburg easing up pretty nicely. A couple of exceptions. The Mike 1 from Beclue all the way down to Corlett Drive looking heavy, and the N3 still jamming heavily into that sort of roadwork section there by Heldon Ace interchange side. Durban, the M4 around Virginia Airport, bit slow. There is an event underway in that area, so between Durban and Umhlanga, a bit of extra traffic today. The N3 closed on that glide off to the M13 at Paradise Valley. Big abnormal load truck stuck there. You'll just have to divert out to the Richmond Road, N3 Richmond Road up into Pinetown. It's a bit busy that way, understandably. R61 between Munster and Port Edward, still closed at Leisure Bay. That's due to a truck that's lying across that section of the R61 on the deep south coast of KZN. Cape Town this morning, traffic lights out. It's probably the light when it fails has the biggest impact. I can't think of the bigger one around Cape Town. It's the Montague Drive, Bosmansdam Road. So very heavy out of Edgemead, out of Boortessuck, N7 north from Goodwood. Absolute disaster trying to get off the highway and into that Bosmansdam traffic. If you know an alternative route, well, they're going to be busy as well this morning. Highway still really slow around Cape Town. M5 Rondebosch through towards Kubo. Going to change M3 from Wynberg Hill up to Hospital Bend. N7 from Vancay Mall. Heavy queues up through Langa into the Epping area as well this morning. Just a quick one, a little bit later today, but it's a really big deal. The N9 between George and Oudtshoorn will be closed for blasting. It'll be a 3-hour closure. You won't be able to get through on that route, George Oudtshoorn, 2 p.m. until 5 p.m. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
A very good morning. One last time, Zai Khan, Stellenbosch FC head coach Gavin Hunt, he says his side will need to be at their absolute best when they face Sundowns. Well, of course.
Of course. They have to bring everything, even their A game tonight, because you don't just arrive at Loftus. You have to survive Loftus. And at night, Cathy, it's going to be something else for any team that takes on a Sundowns at their own fortress. And this is the Stellenbosch FC head coach Gavin Hunt. They head into the clash on the back of a 3-1 win over Sekhukhune United, but face that challenge against a Sundown side that's unbeaten in over 50 matches at Loftus Versfeld. In the meantime, we've also got the Sundowns midfielder Jadem Adams saying they're expecting a real test against Stellenbosch. The Brazilians fresh off booking their place in the CAF Champions League final, but they remain locked in a tight premiership race, and Adams believes that Sundowns are going to be ready for a team like Stellies who are likely to bring pressure.
I think obviously a hard-running team, well organized, well coached, and I think just we must expect them to come out firing because they come off a win, I think, last week. So they're going to be confident and, yeah, they're going to come at us, but we're going to be ready.
Now, rugby Springbok coach Rassie Erasmus says excitement is building ahead of the 2026 international season with less than 2 months to go before they face the Barbarians in Gqeberha. The Boks will then host England, Scotland and Wales in July before a blockbuster series against the All Blacks later in the year. Cricket, the Proteas women will be looking to seal the T20 series against India today at Wanderers. With one more win enough to wrap up the contest with games to spare, South Africa head into the clash full of confidence. And we've got the seam bowler, Tumi Sekukune, saying the focus is getting the job done early.
I think it's very important for us to, have a 3-0 tomorrow because, be preparing for the World Cup and, we want to take that momentum going into the World Cup. And obviously, we trying to, do things differently and see if they could work, different combinations and see Sune betting up there, opening the batting. So I think those are the things that I think we are working towards in getting into the World Cup.
And finally, boxing, excitement building ahead of the knockout chaos on 25th April. Organisers promising a fresh and fan-focused approach to fight night. Boxing South Africa COO Mandla Nhlanganiso says this kind of event could bring something new to the sport.
I think with the knockout chaos, colleagues, I think Kevin and team, they were sweating that day when they were presenting this to us. And then we welcome you to say that this is what we need in boxing, innovation. And with innovation, and you see that our boxers, will be getting bonuses. It's a different style of bringing boxing. It's a new concept, and I believe that come Saturday, we're going to see fireworks on the ring.
And that's where we wrap it up for now. We'll be back in the boxing ring with John Hedeker around 12:30 for the National Briefing Sport. I'm Zai Khan.
Spar Winner Car is back. Stand a chance to win one of 50 Hyundai Extras when you buy participating products like 6-pack Spar Long Life Full Cream or Low Fat Milk for $89.99. Save 10 Rand. Or 900 gram Bokoma Wheat Bix for $52.99. Save 12 Rand. Prices valid from 22 April till 10 May. Shop, swipe and win while stocks last. Only at Spar. T's and C's apply.
Attention all shoppers.
Our supermarket shelves are full of unhealthy food. It's often hard for me to know which foods are good for my family. The information on packaged food is complicated and hard to understand. I wish we had easy-to-understand warning labels on foods high in salt, sugar, and saturated fat. We have the right to know what's in our food. Support front-of-package warning labels on unhealthy packaged foods. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
We continue on the national briefing. It's 8:39. Just taking a look at some of the responses you've been sending through to our conversations this morning. Let me look at the messages that have come through on the SRD grant and the debate we've had around the basic income grant. One of our listeners says the current taxpayers cannot be disadvantaged because of no active employment seekers. How are these payouts monitored, and are we even sure that the right people are receiving the income? That's one question there. Look, when you look at how stringent that criteria has become, including even being challenged in court, there's no question about whether or not the right people are receiving it. But of course, I know there have also been those allegations of corruption, right, of people in the system who are manipulating. Sometimes you have government workers that are receiving grants and you ask yourself, how did this person even qualify in the first place? So that very much is a legitimate issue. Mr. Axe in East London says, would it not serve well to take the SRD grant and look for SMEs that are already functional and assist them with scaling their business and thereby creating new employment instead of creating further dependency on the state? A universal income grant would be crippling to a young population like South Africa. Yeah, that's one way of doing it, right? Because either way, regardless of whether you have a basic income grant, SMEs in this country still need to be supported. SMEs are not supported enough. Lisiba, you're calling from Khobokwane. Good morning.
Good morning, Sis Katie, and good morning to our producer Level, and thanks for taking my call. You see, as Katie, as we continue to look very close what is happening at Mazanga, we also continue to observe the fallout. Yesterday, the National Police Commissioner, Masemola, appeared, and we all understand his commitment to fight crime. But unfortunately, we can't say if it is Masemola and then we bring a different measure, but we need to say the law, let the law take its course, and then the president should appoint the acting police commissioner to act on behalf of Masemola while Masemola is going through his court appearance. And we let the president to appoint General Mkhwanazi, the KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Commissioner, to continue. Because you see, it is unfortunate to see General Masemola appearing with other 12 top police officers with the case of Matala, who's a very, very serious kidnapping and very dangerous, because in all these issues, people have lost their lives, other people have lost their income and so on. So let commissioner be given a precautionary leave, step aside, and then the law take its course.
But Lisiba, you'd then have a situation where the police minister is acting and the national commissioner is acting. That surely is also not a good look.
Yeah, it's not a good look for us all. It's not a good look. You see, many people have been calling on your show saying that we lost trust in South African police service. But this is the result of what the people have been saying. Unfortunately for me as a black person, when I checked, last time when we got a successful police commissioner was General George Fivers. Since George Fivers takes his level up until today, National Commissioner Masemola, it shows that it looks like we the black people, we can't run the police. So it's unfortunate part of it. It's not a racism, but it's very clear that we are struggling in this regard. So there's nothing much we can say. Let the men step aside and allow President to appoint General Mkhwanazi to take over, because Public Finance Management Act, Public Finance is a serious act. And the Auditor General saying all the people who will be concerned in the Public Finance Management Act, they must take responsibility. They must be personally held liable, because this is about the funds of the people. You can't take 360 million, give it to a criminal, whereas which 15 million of it already being paid out.
Okay, Lisiba, let's leave it there. Let's leave it there. Lisiba out in Khobokwane. Does it have to come down to a general phrasing of incompetence of black African people? Is that what it always has to come down to? Why can it not just stay with it being about these individuals? That, yes, there are questions that these individuals themselves must answer for. Why must it be about all black people?
Hi, Cathy. This is Mpiwe here. I think Masemola should be suspended because besides what has been called in for now, but all these shenanigans that's been happening in the SAPS has been happening under his watch. So for that reason, for me, he must be suspended and someone new occupy the space. Thank you.
Hello, Cathy. Thuli Madonsela, or should I say Professor Thuli Madonsela, she's seemingly spreading a propaganda. She's in a mission of spreading a propaganda. All these things that she's saying now are unfounded. I don't agree. I'm black myself, but I don't agree with her.
Morning, Cathy. It's Andy from Cape Town. No, Dr. Lochner is fumbling, Cathy. No, I've never had an independent professor, law specialist talking like this, Kathy. What is saying carry no substance, especially in the law fraternity, Kathy. I don't know the law, but no. I understand the law a bit, but I know doctor must sit down. No.
Good morning, Cathy. Just thinking that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because the general was a credible witness at the commissions that he's been in. And it's just a bitter pill to swallow to see that this one went over his head. But I think it's a bit unfair to compare him with his predecessors, because he really did not show those criminality sides. If at all, I know what those are. But anyway, that's my take on it. Thank you. Atang Pulukwan.
All right, thanks for those WhatsApp voice notes. The point here is the fact that you have a serious office, that of the National Police Commissioner, where seemingly it has proven impossible for a police commissioner to finish their term of office, whether by way of controversy, by way of serious charges. The point is, when people leave the office, they leave with a cloud over their head. And Masemola would be no different should he be suspended by the president. It would be no different, because there would be yet again another officer, another police commissioner rather, out of office due to controversy. Shasha, you're in Poch. Good morning.
Morning, Kathy.
Yes, sir.
I'm very well. I also want to add on this Fani Masemola thing and also the SRD. It's a pity, because if he can be suspended, it will be another one, like the minister who is suspended, and then now the national commissioner. That will really be a pity if things can go to that. I wish something else can be done, and not maybe to suspend him. And if maybe it goes to that, suspended, then we see no one that can act there as acting. I can't see any person better than Unhlanhla Mkhwanazi, because Unhlanhla Mkhwanazi is today South Africa's hero, especially to those people who are law-abiding people who are honest. Unhlanhla Mkhwanazi is really our hero.
Okay.
Yes.
Shasha,
yes.
in Poch, let's leave it there. Yeah,
I thank you.
If I remember some of the evidence before the inquiries and the Madlanga Commission, usually if the commissioner is out of office for whatever reason, it will be one of the deputy national commissioners that acts on his behalf. But now, I think there's only one or two that hasn't been fingered in controversies amongst those deputy national commissioners. I don't know if a provincial commissioner automatically becomes available for acting positions. Let's go to the latest traffic update. Rob, good morning.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. Going into Pretoria this morning, the N4 Emily Highway quite heavily backed up through the M1 and down in towards Hatfield area, looking very slow. The bike one in Joburg under pressure from Woodmead, moving down towards Corlett Drive. That's southbound, northbound from Melrose up to Greyston, looking a bit sluggish as well. And being a midweek Wednesday, just a lot of traffic on routes into Sandton, coming in on Sandton Drive, Ravonia South Road through Morningside. That side just really quite busy and a real standout sort of traffic area for Joburg at the moment. Apart from that, cross into Durban, a stationary abnormal load on the N3, glide off to the M13 to go to Pinetown. You might find yourself still being rerouted further out the N3 to Richmond Road, and then Richmond Road to work your way into the Pinetown area. Looking okay between, well, I say that, between Durban and Petermaritzburg. There is just a bit of a queue up around the Key Ridge Cliffdale area, so we'll just keep an eye on that one. Cape Town, still lots and lots of traffic all over the show this morning. M5 north from Rondebosch, very heavy up to Coburg, get a change. The N1 inbound from Plattercliff Hill, solid all the way to Coburg, get a change as well. And of course, those traffic lights on Montague Drive and Bosmansdam are still down, and that's causing absolute chaos from Edgemead and Boertesak areas, trying to get across the N7 and trying to get off the N7. Particularly bad with queues from Goodwood, Four-Tracker Road, all the way up towards Bosmansdam Road. Also worth a mention, Jan Smuts Drive coming out of Athlone up towards Epping. That remains quite heavy as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign into the app and click on Transact. Next, select Payables, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
This is Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
(8:52), you're listening to the National Briefing as we're getting ready to round up the show. Before we do, we're getting into our Built in Mzansi segment. These are the solution drivers, the innovators, those quietly building this country's economy. And this morning, our guest has developed solutions for tuberculosis. We know South Africa still carries one of the world's highest TB burdens. A national prevalence survey found that 58% of people who test positive report no symptoms at all, and symptom-based screening is missing in most cases. Well, our next guest is the CEO of a medtech startup. They've just closed an 85 million rand pre-series round A. Brandon van Breda is the CEO of AI Diagnostics. Brandon, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. Firstly, tell us about what you do at AI Diagnostics.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to all the listeners. Sure. So at AI Diagnostics, we've developed a tuberculosis screening tool, which combines an AI model with a digital stethoscope to be able to recognize patients that likely have TB by the sound of their lungs. So we've kind of developed a Shazam for tuberculosis.
Brandon, a stethoscope is at least 200 years old, an instrument that has been critical in the medical field. Now, help me understand. How did you get to a point where you realized AI could reinvent it? And how do you have a stethoscope without having the actual physical instrument?
Yeah, so we do have a physical stethoscope. It just doesn't have the porting to your ears. So it's just the part that listens to the lung sounds. And, you know, I guess the why we thought of augmenting the stethoscope with AI is exactly that clinicians have been using it for centuries. So it's clearly got a lot of clinical information that we just need to be able to understand really with AI. I think really what our focus was empowering nurses and community health workers who know how to use a stethoscope but haven't really unlocked the value of a stethoscope. So by providing specialists like AI, we're able to, convert or at least empower nurses and community health workers to use a stethoscope like a specialist.
How do you ensure that people move along sort of with the capability of the technology and are not overwhelmed by just how much it unlocks and the sheer ability to use it?
Yeah, so within our app that's paired with the stethoscope, the app runs on your phone, and most of our users are very familiar with downloading apps on their phone and navigating a typical app-like environment. But we've also, we've built training videos into the app that really helps the user understand how this product works, and it really becomes as simple as placing the stethoscope on the patient's body and pushing a button, getting the recording, and then it tells the user exactly what next steps to take with that patient.
Brendan, when we look at some of your innovations, they've been internationally recognized, and you've also, received recognition for the patents that go along with it. What has it taken to get to where you are today?
Well, I think firstly, quite a bit of good fortune. I was obviously able to do my engineering degree and my engineering masters, and I started working in the medical field early in my career, which really you need a lot of background to work in the medical field, understand the regulatory processes and things. So yeah, a lot of fortune of learning about all of that. And then since starting at Diagnostics, I think it's taken a bit of grit. If anything, that's probably the most important ingredient. For the first 3 years, I was unable to, have a salary or anything like that, and it was kind of crossed over with the COVID pandemic, so we weren't allowed access to any of the local facilities. Recruiting and collecting patient data was really challenging, but I think that's, as my father would say, nothing worthwhile comes easily. So that's, I would say that's probably the main ingredient.
And now I'm curious, an engineering degree ending up in the medical field, doing what?
So I started off developing sort of cardiac implants, and that was, it really becomes a bit of a mechanical system in the end. So engineering working with clinicians is a good pairing. In air diagnostics, really the skill sets are a lot of electrical engineering and AI capability. So, our founding partner is also an AI specialist, and it's those combinations that have really worked well. We have clinical consultants and a clinical chief medical officer that works in the team that really provides the clinical aspect of what we're doing. But it's quite a multidisciplinary team to provide the solution we do.
Brendan, as you're speaking, I'm just thinking about jobs of the future, skills of the future, and I think you very much represent the possibility of what can be, right? Thank you so much for coming onto the show, sharing your story with us. Brandon van Breda, the CEO of AI Diagnostics. Sure, what a story, right? What possibilities lie out there for us? And the lesson: you can never go wrong, clearly, with an engineering degree. I think that's part of where the future is. The engineers are up. It is time for the engineers. On that note, that's where we come to the end of the national briefing for today. We're back with you again tomorrow between 6 and 9 a.m. Up next, the Daily Discourse with Joanne Joseph.
In our top stories, police chairperson calls for Masemola's suspension and Jaden Lee Meek's murder trial resumes. Good morning. The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, has called on the President to act without delay and suspend National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola following his court appearance yesterday. Masemola faces charges of contravening the Public Finance Management Act over the awarding of a 360 million rand tender to alleged criminal cartel member Vuzimuzi Cathy Mohlahlana. Cameron has also reiterated the committee's call for urgent lifestyle audits across SAPS. He says accountability can no longer be optional.
The President must act now and suspend the National Commissioner and appoint a credible acting leader immediately. I also would like to warn that the paralysis of senior leadership in the South African Police Service is deepening an already critical crisis within the police. Both the executive and administrative leadership of SAPS are effectively compromised by this. This is not just a routine matter. It is a full-blown leadership crisis in an institution that's already struggling to meet its most basic mandate.
A new witness is expected to take the stand at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry this morning. The commission is set to hear evidence relating to alleged criminality in the Sidibeng area in Gauteng. The Madlanga Commission was established by President Cyril Ramaphosa last year following allegations made by the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi of corruption and political interference in the criminal justice system. Sibahle Mota reports.
The Madlanga Commission has up to this far heard testimony from various witnesses from the South African Police Service as well as the Ekurhuleni and Tshwane Metro Police Departments. It is investigating allegations of criminal infiltration in law enforcement agencies by cartels. The commission, which was initially given 6 months to conclude, has been extended until August 2026. While the first interim report has already been submitted to President Cyril Ramaphosa, a second one will be handed over to him at the end of May 2026. The final report is expected to reach the President's desk at the end of August 2026.
The trial of 32-year-old Tiffany Meek, accused of killing her 11-year-old son, Jaden Lee, is expected to resume at the Johannesburg High Court this morning. Meek faces several charges, including criminal injury and attempting to defeat the ends of justice. The state has since withdrawn the charge of child abuse, citing insufficient evidence. Jaden Lee's body was discovered next to a stairway in the complex where he lived with his mother in Vleerhof in Johannesburg. Lerato Makola reports.
According to the state, Jaden Lee was struck with a blunt object. His blood was allegedly found on his bed in school uniform, and it is believed that the scene was staged to mislead investigators. During Tiffany Meek's last court appearance, she pleaded not guilty to all charges, denying any involvement in her son's death or abuse. She has since been denied bail, with the state indicating that witnesses are available.
2 people have died when a bus they were travelling in overturned on the N1 between Louis Trichardt and the Hendrik Verwoerd Tunnel in Limpopo. The crash happened after midnight on a sharp curve on the mountainous road. Traffic officers, police and the emergency services are attending to the scene. And finally, the first volunteers have been immunized in Britain with the vaccine to protect against a potential pandemic of bird flu. The vaccine is against the H5N1 strain, which has caused devastating infections in bird populations worldwide and has spread to some mammals. The BBC's Fergus Welsh has the details.
4,000 volunteers, the majority in the UK, are being recruited to this trial, which will assess the safety and immune responses from the vaccine, which uses mRNA technology, first deployed in COVID jabs. The US firm Moderna, which created the vaccine, now has a manufacturing plant in Oxfordshire where mRNA jabs can be produced quickly and in huge quantities.
Recapping the top story, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Police, Ian Cameron, has called on the President to act without delay and suspend the National Police Commissioner, General Fani Masemola, following his court appearance yesterday. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM. Prime time all day long. SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
.906 here on the Daily Discourse. Good morning and welcome back to the Wednesday edition of the programme. Great to be with you. I'm Joanne Joseph. The team is here, Kenewe and Melissa, taking your calls and producing the show as always. Mundli is on sound and Sibusiso is behind the lens. The team is really delighted to be with you this morning. Remember, we love to hear from you, so you can talk to us over the course of the next 3 hours. Call us on 086 000 2032. That is our studio line. Send us a WhatsApp on 0614 104 107. If you prefer to send a voice note, go ahead and do that. Keep it fairly short so we can listen to as many as possible. Some of the big stories we are looking at this morning. The Special Investigating Unit is chasing those alleged to have benefited from dishonesty at state-owned entities, and they've begun with Eskom. They've just frozen the assets of one of those beneficiaries, and we're going to hear more from the SIU in this hour. The amount we're talking about here is more than 76 million rand. So can you imagine? Someone benefited from that, did not deliver the services they promised to Eskom, and simply walked away thinking they would sail off into the sunset with that money in their back pocket. If you hear the kind of assets involved, it would blow your mind. We're going to speak to the SIU in a short while to get those details. And then at 10 o'clock, we're talking about the issue of education, and it all emanates from a call that one of you made to us. You asked us a question during a conversation last week about whether we've got dozens of unemployed graduates walking around because the university courses that they study don't actually equip them to be employed. We know there's a high unemployment rate in the country anyway, right? So when the economy is not growing, employment is down. But having said that, there is the reality as well that sometimes the courses that tertiary institutions offer are not exactly tailored to the needs of the market that needs to grow. So we're going to have that conversation today. We're going to spend an hour and we're going to talk to 4 different entities about the issue of university degrees versus short courses. Do they work, does one work better than the other? Do they work hand in glove to be able to give our youth in particular the education they need to become employable? We'll talk about that in just over an hour. And then later on in the program from 11 o'clock, we're talking about the issue of obstetrical violence. Now, I was horrified to read the background to the story. There has been a report that Embrace, a civil society organization, has put together, and this report exposes a lot of things. It exposes, for starters, the cruelty and the ill treatment and abuse that so many women have experienced around the issue of their maternity and childbirth, and what they've experienced in hospitals is just so horrific that actually, although we wanted to hear from at least one of them today, we haven't actually been able to get someone to come on because they are so traumatized by their experiences. Have you had those experiences when you've given birth, whether in a public or a private facility? Have you been treated in a way that was contrary to your rights as a woman giving birth in that environment? We want to hear from all of you, so please make use of these numbers to get in contact with us. We want to hear your stories. They're important to you. Right now, we're taking a short break, and when we come back, we'll get right to that SIU story and take some of your calls.
Attention all shoppers.
Our supermarket shelves are full of unhealthy food. It's often hard for me to know which foods are good for my family. The information on packaged food is complicated and hard to understand. I wish we had easy-to-understand warning labels on foods high in salt, sugar, and saturated fat. We have the right to know what's in our food. Support front-of-package warning labels on unhealthy packaged foods. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all, under the theme Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAfm will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
Top Billing is back with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. Get ready to experience the world of luxury, travel, design and inspiring stories with our dynamic new presenters, Zozibini Tunzi, Bryony Govender, Arno Greef and Sinemivuyo Mpulu, bringing their unique style, energy and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3 Thursday the 30th of April at 7 p.m, repeats Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. Top Billing is back. You don't want to miss it.
The Daily Discourse on SAfm, weekday mornings from 9 to 12.
All right, we are taking your calls on the station at the moment. Thank you for joining us here on the Daily Discourse. And let me tell you about some of the other stories that we are covering for you today a little bit later on. We spoke about the issue of gender-based violence in general, and we are now looking at obstetrical violence as a more serious violation of that. It is one of the aspects of gender-based violence. You know that the president has put this very high on the agenda in the country right now, and this is something that is, we hope, going to be looked at with the same seriousness. And there are many researchers who are actually looking into this story, but the difficulty is that people will not come on to talk about their experiences because it really is such a sensitive situation. So we're going to be having a chat about that, and if you feel that there's a story about your ill treatment when you gave birth at a particular facility, and you want to share that story, please feel free to do so with us. I promise you that we will give you your ear because we want people to come out and start talking about this. It's amazing that it's something that's really been brushed under the carpet for so long. And, if you look at the incidence of it and the rates of it, particularly in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, where I think many people were interviewed about it, you really do get the sense that that people are struggling, women are struggling, and it's something that they've been struggling with silently, right? Nobody has actually come forward and willingly told their story of the abuse they've suffered. And I think it's also become so much the norm that people are almost expecting that kind of treatment when they go to hospitals. So I actually have a relative who gave birth just over a year ago to a little girl, and she was in a public hospital. And she alerted the nurses to the fact that she could feel she was crowning. She was about to give birth. This child was about to come into the world, and she was trying to get their attention, and she was unable to get their attention because she'd kind of been brushed off when she was trying to get their attention. They said, no, your baby is far from coming. You'll be fine. And she kept trying to communicate with them and say to them, but I've had a baby before. This is my second child. I can feel something happening here. Please listen to me. But they didn't take any notice of her. And so when it got worse and she was hit by several waves of terrible pain, the contractions that you get, and she realized something was amiss here. And if she didn't get help, there was going to be trouble. So she got out of the bed and she walked towards the nurse's station. And as she walked towards the nurse's station, this child actually essentially burst out of her, and the baby hit her head on the floor. And so these are the sort of stories that we're hearing all the time. Did she feel, as a relative of mine, that she had any kind of recourse? We discussed it, but it didn't go much further than that, because a lot of people who are in the public healthcare system in particular, and I'm simply giving this example because this occurred within my family. She didn't feel that she had a right to call the nurses to order, etc., because she felt, well, they've still got to look after my baby and me until we leave hospital, and so it's best for me to keep quiet and not say anything about this. So I'd love to take your calls on this issue. Remember, our studio line is open, 086 000 2032. Your voice notes on this are welcome as well. And it looks like we do have a caller. Oh, no, not yet. We are waiting to hear from someone. We're waiting to connect with someone on this issue. But it's a really important issue, and I think we need to bring it to the fore, because a lot of people are not comfortable speaking about it. And if you have been the victim of this kind of violence, if you have survived this kind of violence, and it need not have been in a hospital facility, right? Women also experience this kind of, and I would say girls as well, because teenage pregnancies are very much a reality in our country. There's very much the feeling when you walk in as someone who is not supposed to have been pregnant at this age, that young women find that they receive this kind of abuse as well, and it can be any kind of abuse. It can be verbal abuse and as well as physical abuse, and so there are many types of abuse that occur in regard to this. So keep those messages coming. We're also looking at this issue of the Special Investigating Unit working so hard to recover the assets lost, and I think we really do need to we need to focus on these individuals for a moment who have allegedly stolen from the state, and the importance of recovering the money. It's not good enough for us to be saying, well, they've gone to jail, we lost the money in the process. That's very unfortunate, but there's little that we can do about it. There isn't little that we can do about it. There's a lot that the Special Investigating Unit can do about it. And so I think it's quite important that that we bring these individuals to the fore, and that the SIU keeps pursuing individuals like this who are accused of owning these assets. You just look at what people are earning, right, in senior positions, and you can just tell from looking at the assets that they own that there is no way on earth that they would have been able to afford what they would have afforded. You look at the cars, the stable of luxury cars in their garages. You look at the homes that they can afford in upmarket areas like Zimbabwe. You look at you look at all these aspects that how they simply live beyond their means. And we were having a chat about this morning, that people are not always even very subtle about where the money comes from and how they are living as a result of it. You find people posting this on social media. You open up social media, Instagram and the like, and then all of a sudden you see people living lives of luxury that are really well beyond their means. And you wonder, how on earth did they afford it? And of course, this all ends up being evidence later on when people are actually caught and put on trial. Let's take a call from Zintle in East London. And you want to talk about the issue of giving birth, especially in relation to our conversation about obstetrical violence. Zintle, good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely to have you with us. Yes.
So in my case, I note that the topic is more about the abuse and all, but I just wanted to relate a story which is actually the opposite, where I kind of got assistance and support whilst I was at the private hospital. My pregnancy was high risk. I was having both diabetes and high blood pressure.
Wow.
And my doctor referred me to what I would call a nurse that I would visit on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me that was the saving point, because towards the 9 months, I think at 35 weeks, I stopped feeling the kicks, and fortunately it was the day of the visit to the nurse.
Right.
At the hospital, And yeah, they tried to save the baby. That same day I was operated, and even though the baby, I would say, struggled, was resuscitated and all.
Sure.
And post that, the support that I got from my doctor, from the hospital, I think I'm just grateful that I have my baby, because it could have been the opposite,
I'm so delighted
and I just wanted to emphasize in my case, the importance of those frequent visits as instructed by the doctor, because had I not done that, I would have rocked up at 9 months or at the date of the appointment for the Caesar, and then the next thing, I don't have a baby.
That would have been the most traumatic thing. The whole experience of the difficulties you are having as a pregnant woman are traumatic enough. And Zinhle, thank you for sharing your story, and I'm so delighted. I'm really thrilled that it ended well for you, and I'm sure you got your child, and your child is thriving now, I hope. But all women deserve that kind of intervention, right? And I think many of our listeners would perhaps say, well, you got that kind of treatment because you went to a private hospital. But I think everybody in our country, actually, I know for a fact, every woman in our country deserves the kind of treatment and the individual attention that you got. I don't know how we are going to begin transforming our healthcare system to be able to give women the kind of support that you got. But I'm really delighted that it ended well for you. And then, there's also the issue of, the frequency of being able to reach a doctor. You would, if you went to a public hospital system, you might be sitting in a queue for a very, very long time. This is not to say that obstetrical violence doesn't take place in private facilities. If you've had a negative experience in a private facility, tell me too, because I think this is more about the attitude of people, of doctors and nurses, to the women that they're supposed to be helping. We'll continue this conversation in just a moment.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion, because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours, and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. Easy to apply, no medical examinations, and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Top Billing is back with a bold new chapter and fresh new faces leading the way. Get ready to experience the world of luxury, travel, design and inspiring stories with our dynamic new presenters. Zozibini Tunzi, Bryony Govender, Anu Greef and Sinemavuyo Mpulu, bringing their unique style, energy and perspective to every moment. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3, Thursday the 30th of April at 7 p.m, repeats Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. on SABC1. Top Billing is back. You don't want to miss it.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
9:23 here on the Daily Discourse, and we are taking your messages as well. Many of you, thankfully, responding to the issue of obstetrical violence in our country. I want to listen to some of your voice notes on this.
Good morning, Johan. Johan, your topic about the women that are treated badly in hospitals when they go give birth, it's so horrible. My worry and my major concern is this is done by women against women. And I always say women don't like each other. And you see it in hospitals. Women are treated badly, very badly, when they get to public hospitals. The nurses that are there in the maternity wards treat these people like they are nothing because they are on duty as nurses. And I think government must pay attention to this and make sure that people with such horrible actions are dealt with accordingly. Thank you. Mataboche.
Matabohe, thank you so much for that message. I don't know, I disagree with you. I don't know if I agree with you that women don't get on. I think there's a great sisterhood in this country that we don't often acknowledge. But you're quite right when you say that a lot of the women who treat the patients badly in hospital are women nurses. And it is definitely something that we need to look at. How would you, as someone who might have gone through that experience yourself and experienced the pain and the... Let's face it, it's not the most dignified experience giving birth, right? It's quite traumatic, actually, for the human body. Why would you not have any empathy with the woman who is giving birth? And even if you have never had children, in fact, whether you've had children or not is irrelevant. Your patients require a certain level of care. You've entered the vocation with a view to looking after them, so why can't you? I want to take a call actually from Mohammed in Lenasia, because Mohammed, I understand you're a medical practitioner. Let's hear what you have to say on this issue. Good morning.
Morning, Joanne. Nice show. I just want to put in a little bit of an input. The perception people have of the medical system, the hospital system, the clinic system, has changed quite a lot, Joanne.
Mm-hmm.
I work with the hospitals. I'm basically almost attached to Sebokeng Hospital, and I send maternity patients there. And now, first of all, a shout out to the health minister, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi. He's a wonderful man, caring man, passionate, and he loves his portfolio. And he's been doing wonderful work. We go to seminars where he addresses us, and we don't know about the number of beautiful new hospitals he's built. Now, just for an example, I'll give you. A friend of mine's grandchild was admitted at Sebokeng Hospital. They've got a brand new pediatric hospital there with pediatricians in attendance 24 hours a day.
Right. Mohammed, I just want to ask you, though, are you calling in to talk about obstetrical violence?
About what?
About obstetrical violence? Or you're just making a comment in general about the state of the hospital?
Even the obstetrical ones,